Fairly brisk breeze, particularly in the west, caused by this area of low pressure, and that's where most of the showers have been so far through the morning. Much of eastern England had a beautiful start to the day, but even here it is clouding over, and we'll see more showers moving in through the afternoon. Some heavy ones across parts of South Wales, some lively downpours here through the night, and the potential for a little bit of disruption from those heavy downpours. We do have a yellow warning in place. Lots of showers packing into Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Parts of eastern England may only see one or two. Here, temperatures getting into the low 20s, but generally feeling quite cool for the end of August. High teens and the brisk breeze and the frequent showers certainly making it feel almost autumnal out there. Lots more showers to come as we head through this evening. A line of heavy downpours working into the west coast of Scotland and from west to east across Northern Ireland too. For England and Wales, there'll be some evening brightness, but the showers eventually arriving across East Anglia and the southeast, blown through by a fairly brisk breeze, so it won't rain too long, but then it does also mean the next shower won't be too far behind either. Then we see a brief lull in the southwest before more heavy rain comes in here and into South Wales through this evening, and that band of heavy rain with some thunderstorms mixed in could also cause some issues as it tracks across southern counties through the night. Further north, we'll keep a fair bit of clouds, a brisk breeze and a fair few showers, keeping the temperatures up. Could be a very wet start across the southeast then tomorrow morning. Some heavy downpours, hail and thunder possibility. That all clears out of the way by around lunchtime, and then a mixture of sunshine and showers will follow on, but probably fewer showers tomorrow afternoon, and the breeze a little lighter, but still temperatures in most places high teens or low 20s at best.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Despite what Donald Trump's saying about ceasefires and whatever, reports have been coming out overnight about continuing missile attacks.
Well, British expat David Mason was caught up in those missile attacks on Friday when he and his son barely escaped with their lives after an Iranian missile exploded next to them in a bombing raid in northern Israel.
Let's speak to David, because David joins us now from his hospital bed, actually, to tell us about this terrifying ordeal. David, how are you?
I'm alive. I'm alive. That's one thing. Yeah. I'm alive.
How bad was it? A close call, was it?
It was very close. The missile hit about 25 feet away from us. God. It blew me completely, that's basically off my feet. And it was just dark and just blood everywhere, basically. I landed. As I woke up, there was a body. I was on top of a body which I thought was my son. And as I cleared all the debris away, I looked up and realized my son was standing there with a hole basically in his neck, shot. Oh. And, I basically went into father mode, as my other children said, dad mode. Took my shirt off, wrapped it around his neck to make sure that he wasn't bleeding more. And then he turned to me and said, "But Dad, you're splurting blood from everywhere. My arms, my back, my head." And I said, "Don't worry about me."
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 3 o'clock. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong, on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and across the United Kingdom. Well, lawyers for Epping Council blast the Home Office for leaving it to the very last second to try and overturn a court judgment on the Migrant hotel. The battle over whether asylum seekers should be housed there is continuing. And boats sail as French cops bail. French police officers refuse to stop illegal migrants crossing the channel, partly because, get this, the water is too cold. Well, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey told GB News Brexit is to blame.
The French and others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage has been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer. Should start with an...
Well, it's the biggest design change in 175 years. That's as solar panel post boxes are set to be rolled out across the country. I'm going to be joined by the Secret Society of Hertford Knitters, who are up in arms that they've been blocked from decorating these new woke post boxes. And Grimsby reign victorious over United in a dramatic 12-11 penalty shootout. Fourth tier, Grimsby Town left the Red Devils all at sea in the coastal town of Cleethorpes. Get that, eh? Well done, guys. And car maker Lotus is set to slash 550 jobs in the UK amid uncertainty and rapid changes in global policies. I'll be joined by South Norfolk Council leader, who says they'll be stepping in with support packages. Yep, lots of big topics coming up on the show. So I want to know what you say. I will read out as many of your comments throughout the show as I possibly can. gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Alex, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. The row over asylum seeker hotels has now reached the Court of Appeal. Judges are hearing the Home Office's challenge to an injunction blocking the Bell Hotel in Epping from housing migrants beyond the 12th of September. Lawyers for the government and for the hotel's owner argue the High Court ruling was wrong and risks setting a precedent as other councils weigh legal action against asylum hotels. The Home Office says the decision interferes with its duty to house thousands of destitute asylum seekers. A ruling is expected later today. Russia's ambassador to the UK was summoned to the Foreign Office today after major strikes on Kyiv. The death toll has now risen to at least 18, including 4 children, one just 2 years old. Sir Keir Starmer condemned the assault, saying Putin is killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. Rescuers are still searching through the rubble in the capital after missiles tore into homes and offices overnight. In Westminster, Sir Keir Starmer is replacing his top civil servant at Downing Street. Nin Pandit, the principal private secretary who's only been in the job for 10 months, is expected to move to another government role. She is the third senior figure to depart from Sir Keir's inner circle since Labour took office, following Sue Gray and Matthew Doyle. Downing Street insists the Prime Minister retains confidence in Pandit, but her exit comes amid growing talk of a wider reshuffle of junior ministers after the summer recess. The Treasury is weighing up a new tax on landlords by imposing national insurance on rental income. According to The Times, officials believe the move could raise around £2 billion ahead of Rachel Reeves's autumn budget. Supporters say it targets what they call unearned revenue while avoiding Labour's pledge not to raise VAT, income tax or NIC rates. But the plan comes amid warnings the Chancellor faces a £41 billion shortfall in the public finances by 2030. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says he'll boycott Donald Trump's state banquet next month in protest over the US president's stance on Gaza. Trump's state visit is due in mid-September, with the banquet set to be one of its centrepieces. He stressed his decision was not aimed at the King, writing to King Charles personally to underline his respect. He insists he and his wife prayed about it before deciding, saying his Christian faith made it impossible to attend.
This decision, which, as I say, was very difficult, was to highlight the fact that Donald Trump, coming to our country, is the one man who can bring an end to all this. And our media, yourselves, and the government, and frankly, the British public, need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
And none of the main childhood vaccines in England hit the 95% uptake target last year, with measles protection at its lowest in more than a decade. New figures from the UK Health Security Agency show just 84% of 5-year-olds had received both doses of the MMR jab in 2024 to 25, the lowest since 2009. The North East had the highest coverage, while London recorded just 70% uptake of the 6-in-1 vaccine, which protects against tetanus and polio, among others, did rise slightly, marking the first increase since 2019. Health officials warn patchy coverage leaves children vulnerable to outbreaks of preventable disease. And those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3504 and €1.1589. The price of gold, £2,512.14 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,215 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, lawyers for Epping Forest District Council have blasted the Home Office for leaving it to the very last second to try and overturn a court judgment on the Bell Hotel. As the Home Secretary and the hotel owners seek to overturn last week's ruling, the council is arguing that the government should have intervened far sooner if it truly believed the decision was so significant. Home Office lawyers are arguing the injunction to remove asylum seekers from the Essex Hotel could open the floodgates to many more legal challenges. Well, GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us live. Mark, thank you very much for joining me. Mark, give us the latest on this developing story.
Well, the afternoon session is well underway with more finer points of law being discussed, which can be pretty impenetrable, I have to say. But effectively, you said it in the introduction there, we're currently hearing from the legal counsel for Epping Forest District Council, who are saying that the Home Office were too late to the party and they should not be allowed to enter the sort of appellant phase as it is, appealing against this injunction, because it's in two parts. You've got the Home Office arguing that they should have been allowed to join the process when they tried at the very last minute, and I mean at the very last minute. It was as the judge was sitting down to hand out his ruling granting the injunction to Epping Forest District Council that the legal counsel for the Home Office asked that they should be allowed to join in that process and be heard. And of course it was, as far as the judge was concerned, not relevant and too late, and they were declined that opportunity to join the process at that point. And so they're appealing against the judge's decision. If they win on that appeal, then they are then also appealing to be allowed to join Samani Hotels, the owners of the Bell Hotel in Epping, in their appeal against the injunction. It's all very complicated, but it's got very significant ramifications right across the country, because we've got more than 200 hotels that are still in use, housing 32,000 plus asylum seekers. And although this government has said it plans to end the use of asylum seeker hotels by the end of this Parliament, it's made very little inroad, it seems, to doing that, because the number of asylum seekers in hotels, in the last statistics that were published just the other day, were up slightly on what they were when when the Conservatives were in office. So the Conservatives had reduced the number of asylum seeker hotels and asylum seekers in hotels by about 47%, and really things haven't improved much, although the government insists it's still absolutely committed to ending the use of asylum seeker hotels within the next few years.
Well, Mark, lots more to develop on that, I'm sure. We're hearing some interesting lines coming out of the press media, but we'll come to those hopefully again shortly. Mark White there, thank you so much for joining us live from the Courts of Justice in central London. Well, moving on, in yet another blow to Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, his migrant deal with France. Well, it turns out now that the police in France will defy orders to stop small boats filled with illegal immigrants leaving for Britain. Union chiefs say they would tell border police and gendarmes, I don't quite know the French for that, but not to intercept the migrant boats or even enter the water, partly because it's too cold for them. Well, GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster is joining me now to dig into this. Catherine, I don't know whether we should be too surprised here. The French are quite a socialist in their mindset when it comes to their workers' rights. Is this a ploy almost, to get a pay rise, perhaps? Because that's the way I'm looking at it. Or are they simply just not wanting to participate in stopping migrants from leaving France and coming to the UK?
Well, look, first of all, this isn't even law yet. If you remember a couple of months ago, there was this big announcement from the government next to President Macron that this would be a game change, that the law would be changed to allow French police to intercept these boats up to 300 metres from the shore. That is not law yet. Not only that, but the French government looks to be on the brink of collapse, so it may not become law. But even if and when it does, and I think that's a big if at the moment, the police union, Unité, are deeply unhappy because they are saying that they're simply not going to do this unless they are properly trained, properly protected and properly equipped. And they're saying that at the moment, none of these things are happening. Now, in fairness to the French police, there was a case a couple of years ago, back in 2023, where French military police were charged when 27 migrants drowned in the Channel, and they were said to have not done enough to help. So they're worried about being burnt. And of course, you know, they say they stop about 40% of the crossings, but the people that are trying to get across the Channel will try once, and if at first you don't succeed, they'll try and try again multiple times. They only need to get lucky once.
That's right. And of course, Ed Davey today was blaming Brexit for all of this. He's got some point in at least the returns deal that we would have been able to have with the European Union would have been a little bit easier. But I think to blame it all on Brexit might just be a political angle for the Liberal Democrats here, because they have made their whole, at least a lot of their agenda around sort of having stronger ties with the European Union and our allies in that super state.
Well, yes, the Lib Dems have never got over Brexit, not at all. And Ed Davey saying that Nigel Farage should be apologising because Brexit had made it worse. Now, there is a kernel of truth in that as part of the EU, supposedly you can send asylum seekers back to the country at which they came in theory. In theory. But we've seen the reality that most of these people come in, you know, through Greece or Italy or wherever, countries who are absolutely inundated and cannot cope. They're not going to want to agree to take people back. So the theory of it and the reality of what's happened are completely different things.
Indeed. And, of course, this will be a real pain in the side of Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, who's doing, you know, he's trying to stick within his ideological boundaries, at least, right? Let's just play this clip of Ed Davey again. I think we all want to see it. Let's play that.
The truth is, the small boats is a sign of policy failure. The Conservatives to blame. Actually, Nigel Farage is to blame. You know, before we left the EU, before Brexit, we had a returns agreement with every European country, which meant we could, through the Dublin Convention, automatically return people on small boats. And now that was broken. We don't have that legal power anymore. And the French and others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage, who's been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer, should start with an apology, and the Conservatives should apologise. They caused this problem.
Well, everyone's got to apologise lately. I think Ed Davey's on this apology tour. He wants everyone else to apologise for things that have happened. I mean, like you said, Catherine, it's a kernel of truth, isn't it? It's a kernel of truth, because at the end of the day, we would have expected France to turn around and say, well, we're taking our fair share, you should be taking yours as part of the European Union arrangement on refugees. let's move on to Keir Starmer, because this is a real thorn in his side. He's trying to keep his policy within his ideological framework, which is really not to have any sort of mass deportations that the Tories and Reform have spoken up about. How bad is this? How bad does this undermine the deal he struck with Macron?
It is bad, and the thing is that the political winds are blowing, and they are blowing more firmly by the day against people being allowed to cross the channel, against the legal arguments in favour. Increasingly, people have just had enough because they've had all these promises: stop the boat, smash the gangs. I remember interviewing Starmer before he became Prime Minister, talking about, are you open to third country processing? Well, he wouldn't rule it out, and no matter that ideologically he's a former human rights lawyer, I can't see any world in which a Labour government led by him would say we're going to pull out of the ECHR. But even big Labour figures, former Home Secretaries, Lord Blunkett, Jack Straw, are saying we need to decouple or we need to suspend our membership of the ECHR. Joe White of the Red Wall Group is saying that the ECHR has had its time and called for a review. So even within Labour, there are increasingly voices saying this is not working. And I think they do realise that just as the Conservatives were punished massively, if Labour do not get a handle on this, and quickly, they will be punished in exactly the same way. Look at the poll ratings. There's a poll out in the last hour or two. Reform, it was taken yesterday, so after Reform's pretty hardcore announcement on detentions and deportation, Reform up, polling nearly as much as Labour and the Conservatives put together.
Combined, yeah, I think it was something like 34%, something incredible like that, which I think people would have laughed if we said this a year ago, Catherine. But as you say, the political winds certainly have shifted in a dramatically different direction. Well, let's go and speak more about that to former Director General of Border Force, Tony Smith. Tony, thank you so much for joining me. Tony, look, this is, of course, a really big problem for Sir Keir Starmer. He is trying to, as I was saying to Catherine, find some sort of way to stop the boats, or at least to let those numbers come down a little bit. But it seems whatever he does seems to be coming under threat. Yesterday we heard that the French government might be collapsing, therefore his one-in, one-out deal may potentially be at risk. And then today we've got the French police border patrol saying that they won't wade into the waters to stop the small boats. Is it looking more and more likely that he's going to have to take a tougher approach, as the Tories and Nigel Farage of Reform UK have both indicated?
Well, the proof of the pudding in this game is always the numbers. I've been in this game for a very, very long time now, and the numbers speak for themselves, don't they? The number of boat crossings are at record levels, as you regularly report. The number of asylum applications are at record levels. And all of the announcements that we've heard, including this idea that the French will start intervening on the water, haven't really yielded any results. So I'm not quite sure what he's going to do now in terms of his strategies. I mean, I think we need to give the one-to-one deal a little bit more of a chance. I've always said the best solution of all would be if we could persuade the EU or the French to take migrants back there. It's safe there, a safe third country agreement, that would be the best thing. But as you say, that's not on the cards. And by the way, that was never on the cards when we were in the EU. I worked on the Dublin Convention, and we hardly ever returned anybody to France, even when we were members. So that's another political red herring. I do think that, we're going to be in a lot of trouble here if we can't come up with some sort of a removals deterrent. And that means not really trying to control what the French are doing, but control what we're doing and start detaining people when they arrive in Dover and deporting them very, very swiftly from the country, which is what we are hearing from other parties. Because I think, these constant, attempts to persuade us that, we're buddying up to France and they're going to solve this for them seems to be falling on stony ground, don't they, really?
I don't know how many people would have trusted the French to follow through on some of this, considering we've almost given them $500 million and the numbers are just getting worse. I mean, at what point do we say this is one of the worst deals in British history? But Tony, I think maybe a slightly more charged question here. Is it really ridiculous for the British government to trust the French, who have no national interest in allowing these migrants, who are of course plaguing the north coast of France there? Is it really surprising that they wouldn't want to stop the migrants coming to the UK no matter how much money we throw at them?
Well, put it this way, Alex. I used to be in charge of the border force, and if politicians came to me and said, well, can you send your guys, if this was going the other direction, can you send your guys into the sea off of Dungeness and start pulling migrants out of the water, because we want to stop them, because we're trying to do the French a favour? I'm not sure how they would react to that. I'm pretty sure I would get reps from the union saying, well, Governor, is that safe? I mean, what, have we got powers to do that? Is that legal? I mean, why are we going to do that? Why are we doing that anyway in the first place? I mean, I can understand why the French, Unité representatives say, well, wait a minute, we haven't even got a procedure, an operational instruction to do this, and they want to look after their own. I don't blame them for that, because, officers can get themselves into a lot of trouble, and the politicians won't necessarily bail them out. I can vouch for that. So if someone drowns, or when it's an officer, or somebody drowns as a result of an action by an officer, then, you're going to be in hot water. So I don't blame the French police union for raising these questions. I think they have to, but I think we have to look closer to home, Alex. So what are we doing about this? I mean, relying on the French and giving them lots and lots of money, I can see why we're doing that, but it's not really working, is it?
I couldn't agree more with you. Tony Smith, wise words there, former Director General of the Border Force here in the UK. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, joining us now is Labour councillor Sebastian Salek. Sebastian, thank you for joining me on the show today. This is a pretty big disaster for Keir Starmer. No matter how much money we're throwing in, of course, there was talk of us having to throw more money at this new policy to get the French to wade into waters. We now hear that the French Border Force aren't going to do it. But as I was just saying to Tony there, on what world do we really think the French Border Patrol are going to want these migrants to stay in France? It seems absolutely ludicrous, and I blame the Tories for this as well, because they started this deal, but you guys are continuing it on.
Well, the reality of the migrant crisis is that it is an international problem. There is no solution that doesn't involve doing deals with other countries. It of course, increases the complications of it, and it is one of the reasons why this is the hardest problem to solve, I think, at the moment in politics, really. But you can't get away from the fact that these people are coming from France. Therefore, to fix it, we are going to have to do diplomacy with France. And we've seen diplomacy from this government in a way that we haven't from others, in that it was only once Labour came in and started having those conversations with the French that they were willing to strike a deal. We're in the early days of that deal. There are going to be blips like we're seeing today from the French unions. That doesn't mean the whole deal is completely unworkable. It just means that there are areas to smooth over. And I hope that the unions in France and the government in France will have that conversation, make sure it is safe for their police officers to go into the water and to do the work that they need to do, so that that can be smoothed over and they can continue to deliver on their side of the bargain.
Sebastian, I think the British public will respond to you with this. Diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy. Wait. Nobody is protecting the border on this side of the waters. We're expecting a foreign country to stop illegal migrants from entering our country, people who, of course, want their migrants gone as well. This diplomacy is getting us nowhere. The numbers are through the roof since Keir Starmer took office, which shows, in my opinion, at least a weakness here for the Labour government. And the electorate are punishing you. There was a poll out today which put you just a couple of points ahead of the Tories, who are already pretty low as it is. You guys are basically saying to the British public, don't worry, it's just a blip. In a few years' time, we'll have sorted it all out. Well, the French government looks like it could collapse in the next few days. All of this, and the answer to the British people is to be more patient, I think. Do you not think they've been patient enough?
I think if there's anybody who is telling the British public that this is an easy problem that can be solved quickly and swiftly with minimal fuss, frankly, they are not telling the truth, and I'd be extremely suspicious of anybody who's coming up with a simple solution. The reality of this is that it's a problem that's been going on for many years. It's not going to disappear overnight. It needs to be tackled in a piecemeal way, and by that I mean there will be lots of different parts of this that will come together to create a solution. Just shouting deport, as I see from many corners, is completely meaningless. It's not going to get anywhere. I would love to see an easy solution to this that is workable. I think any government of any colour would snap that up in a heartbeat, because any government of any colour wants this problem gone. So we can assume that all the easy options have been extinguished, and that's why we're going down this line of trying a more complex solution to a complex problem.
But Sebastian, you say deport is an easy answer. Tony Blair, the former Labour government, the last Labour government before this one, deported hundreds of thousands of people to great success. In fact, they didn't even touch the ground here. It's just that we didn't have to make a political circus of it because it was just common sense to do. We've got big Labour grandees, David Blunkett, Jack Straw, all saying, actually, the ECHR is no longer fit for purpose. We need to come out of it and we do need to start deporting these migrants. Even Tony Blair himself has said it. So it seems to me that perhaps is it just this government that's completely out of touch?
Well, in Tony Blair's days, the level of migration was much, much lower. So we can't really compare what was going on then, which is what is happening now. We are seeing a conversation happening about the ECHR. And I think there is space for discussion around Article 8 in particular, and making sure that it is protecting the right people without letting any silly cases happen. There has to be a discussion there. What I don't want to see is, again, a reach for the extreme and for the seemingly simple answer, which is, well, let's just pull out the whole thing, because that will create all sorts of complications across our whole society that we can and should avoid. So we're right to be having this conversation, but let's not, again, reach for anything that seems like it may be the panacea to this issue, which, let us not forget, is really, really complicated, because if it weren't, it would have been fixed by now. There is no political advantage to let this run on any longer than it needs to.
All right, Sebastian Selleck, your Labour councillor, thank you very much for joining me for a good-hearted debate there. Thank you very much. Well, still to come, a furious landlord joins me next as Rachel Reeves considers applying a tax to rental income in the autumn budget. What does that mean for all of you at home? This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . .
Welcome back, everybody. Well, I was just having a look through your say, and, well, quite frankly, I think all of you are just very, very despairing when it comes to the government's line on this and the fact that they're not taking action on the small boat crisis, or at least in your opinion, they're not. And I totally sympathise with you. It does feel like this constant wait. Let's talk to other leaders, but nothing ever happens, does it? I think we just need to patrol our own borders properly and support these people that have come here illegally. I think this is quite a simple solution. Anyway, landlords could face a tax increase in the government's bid to raise £2 billion. This is all part of the Chancellor's attempt to raise revenue by targeting what she calls unearned income. Well, joining us now is founder of Landlord Action, Paul Champolina. Paul, thank you so much for joining me, Paul. This is a damning policy idea from what we believe is probably a leak, because obviously governments like to do this before the budget starts. They like to put some ideas out there and see what gets the worst reaction and which ones get a least worst reaction, should I say. But this is going to have a massive implication for landlords up and down the country, but not just landlords, renters as well.
Of course, Alex. Look, being taxed on unearned income, that's a new one, isn't it? Firstly, Alex, how big is that black hole? We're told 20, 30, 40, 50, who knows how many billions of pounds the black hole is. But the reality is the government are trying to raise £2.18 billion from rental income of £27 billion based on national insurance at 8% from 2023 figures. But the reality is, in the landlording world, and I've been working with landlords for 35 years, I am a landlord. I run a company called Landlord Action where we help landlords with problem tenants. Landlords have been bashed from pillar to post. And when they're being bashed from pillar to post, the biggest losers in all this, Alex, are tenants, because rents go up, or landlords end up selling properties where good tenants are being asked to leave. And dare I say it, maybe they hadn't put the rents up. But the reality is, it all really started in 2017 with George Osborne, where what he did was he abolished mortgage interest relief. So any landlord that had an interest-only mortgage was not able to offset that as a disbursement. So what happened was landlords were being taxed on turnover rather than profit, the only business that actually has that, and then it got phased in as it was fixed rate of tax bands. So that came in, that was a big change to the industry. On top of that, there was 3% additional stamp duty, which is now 5%. So any landlord that buys a property, or if anyone buys a secondary property, you have to pay 5% additional stamp duty. Then they abolished wear and tear allowance, which means that you can't offset wear and tear. And then, of course, when you do sell your property, if you are a landlord, then of course you're going to pay capital gains between 18 and 24%. So as of last year, 24-25, there was 570,000 properties that were sold. So that's great income to the government, up from 188,000 in 2010. And then think about all the other environment that we've had, Alex. We've had Liz Truss that came in, and of course interest rates shot right up, albeit I do remind landlords when I'm educating and speaking to landlords across the circuit, I'm doing like 7 talks next month alone, that landlords did have it good for a long time, Alex, because they had 0% interest rates. And then of course along the environment of landlording is Labour's big manifesto on housing, which is bringing in the Renters' Rights Bill. And the big headline is the abolishment of Section 21 and obviously not advanced rents and periodic tenancies. So landlords are navigating lots of regulation that's coming in, which adds to costs. And of course, being a landlord is a job. It's a profession.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point, Paul, because one of the chancellors.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. One of the Chancellor's lines was that she wouldn't tax working people. Is it now the case that if this policy becomes real and it does become part of the next budget, that landlords aren't working people?
Listen, I did an interview months and months and months ago on GBNews saying landlords are working people. I mean, look, 85% of landlords got between 1 and 3 properties. I can tell you now, with all these changes, and we haven't even talked about EPCs, electrical performance certificates, with our mad green energy bill by Ed Miliband, which is basically saying every EPC has to go up to a level of C, which means by 2030, which means that some properties landlords are going to have to spend thousands on to make it up to a C. And actually it comes to a point where some, again, speaking to landlords on a daily basis, some landlords say, you know what, I've had enough, Alex, I'm going to sell. And if I sell, I have to serve notice to my tenant. I have to evict them, or they have to move to another property, or the rents haven't gone up. And then, of course, that adds to the rental stock crisis, because we know we're not going to build 1.5 million properties in 5 years. I'd say, Alex, you've got more chance of winning the lottery than that happening.
Well, Paul, as a renter myself, I am absolutely, I'm in despair, because rents are hard enough as it is for a lot of young people in this country. It's hard to get on the housing market and save for a deposit. And also, I feel sympathy for a lot of landlords who are struggling to make ends meet as it is. But I think there's this fallacy that landlords are all multi-millionaires. But unfortunately, Paul, we've got to leave it there. Thank you for coming on with me. Hopefully, we'll have you on again. That's Paul Champolina, founder of Landlord Action. OK, well, a Treasury spokesperson said this: "We are committed to keeping taxes for working people as low as possible, which is why at last autumn's budget we protected working people's pay slips and kept our promise not to raise the basic, higher or additional rates of income tax, employee national insurance or VAT." All right, OK. Well, there's lots more to come between now and 4 o'clock. And some breaking news, of course. Car maker Lotus is set to slash 550 UK jobs and is the leader of South Norfolk councillors. Joining me with the latest on that disaster. But first, your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Alex, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories: the government is warning a court ruling over the Bell Hotel in Epping could fuel more protests. Ministers are appealing against an injunction blocking asylum seekers from being housed there after the site became a flashpoint for demonstrations. Russia's ambassador has been summoned to the Foreign Office after strikes on Kyiv killed at least 18 people, including 4 children, one just 2 years old. The Treasury is weighing a new tax on landlords by extending national insurance to rental income, a move that could raise £2 billion ahead of the autumn budget. And Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey insists he means no disrespect to the King by boycotting Donald Trump's state banquet next month. He says it's down to his Christian faith and opposition to the president's stance on Gaza.
British public need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers and also some frontal systems. And showers are set to continue for the first half of the evening, eventually easing away across central and eastern parts of England. But then a heavy band of rain skirting southern parts of England and Wales, moving its way eastwards. This likely turning heavy, particularly towards dawn, and a chance we could hear some thunder overnight too. Showers continuing across the northwest, but where we see any clear skies, it should feel a lot cooler and fresher than of late. So a wet start across parts of southeast England. Sussex and Kent, for example, will see some heavy downpours before eventually these outbreaks of rain will start to push into parts of East Anglia. A little drier and brighter across central and eastern parts of England, but in the west we'll still continue to see these showers feeding through, particularly northwest Scotland, where once again we could see some heavy showers, a risk of hail and thunder mixed in there too. Northeastern parts of Scotland a little brighter, but across the Northern Isles some low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. For a time, once again, across eastern parts of England, it will be brighter, but soon to be replaced by another day of sunny spells and showers. Showers most frequent across western areas, where at times it could be quite blustery, particularly around coastal spots, or if you catch any heavy downpours, we could see some strong gusty winds for a time. Temperatures around about average for the time of year, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, though a little fresher at times across the north in the breeze. Into the evening, showers continuing for a time before it will turn a little bit drier as we head towards Saturday morning. But Saturday is set to be another unsettled day. Low pressure sweeping in from the west with widespread strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain. So the unsettled theme continues along with average temperatures.
Crash Law 24.
sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. A full closure is currently in place on the M8 eastbound at junction 6A following a collision. Motorists are advised to use alternative routes and plan for additional travel time to avoid delays. Furthermore, congestion is reported on the M4 eastbound, which may require drivers to exercise patience. In Hampshire, a collision on the A34 northbound has resulted in one lane being closed. Additionally, Wiltshire's A303 eastbound is experiencing heavy traffic. On the railways, cross-country services are facing disruptions, and issues have also been reported with Great Western Railway operations. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back, I'm Alex Armstrong. This is the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. Well, sports car maker Lotus is set to cut more than 550 jobs at its historic UK headquarters. The manufacturer is poised to sack half the workforce at its Hethel base near Windenham in Norfolk, where it has been since 1966 as part of a restructure aimed at giving it a flexible and agile business model. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Conservative leader of South Norfolk Council, Daniel Elmer. Daniel, thank you very much for joining me. Of course, this is very, very bad news for the people in your constituency. How is the response of those who might be impacted from what you can tell so far?
This is a disastrous day for Norfolk. We're talking here about some very highly skilled jobs in a proper manufacturing sector making real things. The scale of disappointment isn't something I'm going to be able to quantify. What's important now, though, is that we get a proper package of support in place to ensure that talent isn't lost, and a proper plan together to make sure this site stays a cluster of engineering for years to come.
Indeed, and of course, Trump's tariffs have been cited as one of the reasons for this closure. What responsibility lies with our government? Because they obviously were negotiating this deal with Donald Trump. Do you think they should have taken a harder line?
Absolutely. There's two things here. There's the trade deal with America, and the reality is we are facing higher tariffs for our exports. You only need to go to Lotus to see that there is a backlog of cars built up on the site. But there's also the inevitable consequence here of higher taxes on jobs. It's a simple fact. If you tax jobs more, you have less of them. And what we're seeing today is the effect of that.
Yeah, and is that down to the last budget, the national insurance increases there also taking an impact on the markets there?
Absolutely. The government put taxes up, it's cost jobs. What the government has to do now is come in and say, look, we caused this, but we have an industrial strategy. We've prioritised advanced manufacturing in that, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is and help you sort this out. We're doing our bit as a council to come up with a plan to protect this site. The government now needs to come in and do its bit.
Yeah, and Daniel, what is it you're doing as a council in order to try and save some of these jobs? I know there's obviously it's a difficult thing to constantly ask the government to step in and help with support packages, but what is it that you're trying to achieve?
I'll break it into two parts because I think part one is the most important part today, and that's what we need to do for those being made redundant. We need to look at a proper package of hardship funding for any of those that may suffer genuine hardship from this. We need to look at how we can support those who want redeploying into the local jobs market. I'm pleased to say we've already had some offers from local manufacturers to take on Lotus staff, but then there's an opportunity for us. What we have here is really talented people right next to a council-owned innovation hub. We want to see, can we get this so that those people start their own businesses, build the cluster on the site, and keep it as a centre of advanced manufacturing? And that then leads us into next week, which is how do we secure it long term? We've already got a plan to expand the incubator that's there. We're investing in the infrastructure on the site as well to allow for further expansion. But what we need now is more support from the government on top of what we're doing. Councils can only do so much. The government needs to put its firepower in.
Yeah, Daniel, I mean, looking at the last 10 years, I mean, specifically for direct manufacturers here in the UK, 6,800 job losses. Obviously, they're not coming back, it seems. Is this just a sad case that the industry is moving to automation? It's following the footsteps of businesses like Tesla, who have got very automated factories, and this is a sign of the times?
Absolutely not. So we're talking about prestige cars here. People pay a premium to get a prestige car with handmade in Britain written on it. That is something of real value. But secondly, a lot of the value in this site isn't just in the actual manufacturing of the cars. It's in testing for other manufacturers. It's in the R&D. It's in a lot of those really advanced services that go alongside. And I think that's the big bit here is, yes, we have the manufacturing, but what you can't replicate is actually you can't replicate big test tracks, nor can you replicate the knowledge and skills that are in those people.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you can help some of those people impacted. I really, really do. A sad day for British car manufacturing indeed. Daniel Elmer there, Conservative leader of South Norfolk Council. Thank you so much for joining me. A Lotus spokesperson has said this. Norfolk will remain the home of the Lotus sports car, motorsports and engineering consulting operations. And added this, we remain fully committed to the United Kingdom. Well, maybe some good news at the end of that there, at least. If you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst across many areas around the Mediterranean, it's looking largely fine as we go through tomorrow. There is some heavy, thundery rain affecting some central parts. That all developed over parts of northern Spain and southern France and has then made its way east-northeastwards to affect parts of northern Italy through today and tomorrow into the Western Balkans by the end of the week. Otherwise, a lot of fine weather to be had away from those thundery downpours affecting some places. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So this story has caught my eye in the Times today. Teenage pupils are being given lessons in how to make a phone call.
Oh, God.
You've heard that right. This is from UCAS. This is the University Admissions Service. And basically, if you miss your university grades, you have to get on the phone to clearing and try and negotiate yourself a place at university.
Yeah.
Teenage pupils these days do not know how to do that, to pick up the phone and negotiate. So schools are having to run workshops where people are being taught, and I quote, how to say hello and knowing that you will need your UCAS number.
These skills? When has all this happened and why has all of this happened?
Because they don't make casual phone calls. You know how you just pick up the phone and be like, hi, how are you doing? How's your afternoon? They don't do that anymore. They just send texts or voice.
I disagree. This is a new thing.
Really?
I got my brother into university via clearing, by phone, because he was so broken about his grades.
Really?
That was in 1999. I rang them up and I got him into a better place than he was going to anyway, because there's so much rich pickings to be had in clearing, or there was in those days. Also got the son of the landlord of the pub I was working at. He flunked his grades as well, and I managed to get him in. So I don't think it's about confidence. It's just sometimes if you're going through clearing, it's usually because you haven't got the grades that you want, and you're probably a bit crestfallen.
No, I mean, generally, they don't. I mean, I talked to some of my colleagues yesterday who were very young, and their form of journalism is to text and email. It is what it is, and that's what the skills of people of a different generation have.
My sports editor, old sports editor years ago, didn't like people who didn't bash the phones, and he called them phone hoverers.
Yeah.
And that was the worst insult you could have in the office.
Well, I remember when I first started in journalism, if you weren't picking up the phone and bashing the phones, you wouldn't come back the next day.
No, exactly.
You had to have made a certain number of phone calls.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Alex Armstrong. This is GB News. In what may go down as one of the greatest football upsets in history, Manchester United were knocked out of the Carabao Cup yesterday by Grimsby Town. The League Two side won an epic 18-minute penalty shootout after the match finished 2-2 at 90 minutes. Commiserations to my director, Jake, who is embarrassingly supporting Man United and is currently crying in our gallery. In fact, he told me he wants a rematch. He says there should be a rematch and the whole game should just be cancelled. So there we go. Let's go live to Grimsby now to speak to reporter, GB News reporter Anna Riley. Anna, tell us all the latest.
Well, good afternoon, Alex. That's it with football, isn't there? There's always winners, there's always losers, but it was Grimsby Town, the Mariners, that came out on top last night in that heroic win against Manchester United. The last time that Grimsby Town beat Manchester United was in 1947, so certainly a lot of happy fans, but what a nail-biting game it was. Under the lights in front of a packed-out stadium at Blundell Park here in Cleethorpes, Grimsby Town produced a display of confidence, passion and pride to go 2-0 up in the first half before recovering late with a late Manchester United comeback to win a marathon penalty shootout that got down to 12-11 and secure their place in club folklore. Grimsby Town's win sparked celebrations on one of the greatest nights in Blundell Park's 126-year history. When they'd won, the fans streamed onto the pitch and celebrated with the players, and it's such a monumental win for Grimsby Town as well, as they sit 56 league places and 3 divisions below Manchester United. So the Mariners' victory, as well as going down as such a huge accomplishment for them, will go down as a real embarrassment for Manchester United's history. It leaves the team winless in 3 games so far this campaign after a 15th place finish in the Premier League last season. The Mariners have certainly given United a drubbing as well. At the end of the game, they were chanting for Manchester United's manager to stand down, and they've also done a few funny things tongue-in-cheek on social media as well. Grimsby Town gloating online, "You've just been slapped by the fish." Of course, a haddock being their monument for the game. Now, we spoke to some players, some fans earlier about the game, and this is what they told us.
I've been supporting them since the 1950s. First time played Manchester United in my lifetime, and what result, what an event.
Magic, weren't it? What a win. Good for the club, good for the excellent for the town, really ecstatic. Well deserved.
How about yourself?
Great win. Goalkeeper on top, he's been really good for the team.
It's a legend, and the old Christy Pym, top goalkeeper, performed excellent.
Well, I've said in earlier interviews, actually randomly interviewed by Radio Humberside, that one of the top 10 bucket list things in my life was to see my home team, Grimsby, play Man United, and it happened. And not only did it happen, it exceeded my expectations with a win.
So commiserations to Manchester United, but what a victory for Grimsby Town. I was speaking to those fans actually outside the club shop, and they were telling me that shirts and memorabilia have already sold out. So certainly great for the town and great for Grimsby.
Yeah, there we go, and I love to see those fans there. It reminds me of the York City. York City, of course, knocked Manchester United out of the League Cup in 1995, so that's probably another one of those events for Man United fans. I've got some crying in my ears. I think it was coming from the gallery or somewhere. Anyway, Anna, what's the feeling in the town there? Is it a good feeling today? Everyone buzzing?
Yeah, a real sense of excitement as well. And speaking to some of the fans who had actually been to the stadium last night and watched the game, one of them told me he'd actually gone back home to watch it. He'd recorded it on his television and he re-watched that match again with a gin and tonic. So yeah, certainly a lot of people going out with the football t-shirts on and celebrating today.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Well, thank you, Anna Riley there, live in Grimsby. We love being out in the town and across the United Kingdom outside the London bubble. It's lovely to see you there. Anyway, coming up, French police officers refuse to stop illegal migrants crossing the channel, partly because the water is just too cold. But Lib Dem leader Ed Davey says it's Brexit's fault. We'll see you after the weather.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers and also some frontal systems. And showers are set to continue for the first half of the evening, eventually easing away across central and eastern parts of England. But then a heavy band of rain skirting southern parts of England and Wales, moving its way eastwards. This likely turning heavy, particularly towards dawn, and a chance we could hear some thunder overnight too. Showers continuing across the northwest, but where we see any clear skies, it should feel a lot cooler and fresher than of late. So a wet start across parts of southeast England. Sussex and Kent, for example, will see some heavy downpours before eventually these outbreaks of rain will start to push into parts of East Anglia. A little drier and brighter across central and eastern parts of England, but in the west we'll still continue to see these showers feeding through, particularly northwest Scotland, where once again we could see some heavy showers, a risk of hail and thunder mixed in there too. Northeastern parts of Scotland a little brighter, but across the Northern Isles some low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. For a time, once again, across eastern parts of England, it will be brighter, but soon to be replaced by another day of sunny spells and showers. Showers most frequent across western areas, where at times it could be quite blustery, particularly around coastal spots, or if you catch any heavy downpours, we could see some strong gusty winds for a time. Temperatures around about average for the time of year, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, though a little fresher at times across the north in the breeze. Into the evening, showers continuing for a time before it will turn a little bit drier as we head towards Saturday morning. But Saturday is set to be another unsettled day. Low pressure sweeping in from the west with widespread strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain. So the unsettled theme continues along with average temperatures.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 is closed eastbound at Junction 6A due to a road incident. Motorists should seek alternate routes and expect extended travel times. On the M4 eastbound, congestion stretches from Junction 24 at Coldra to Junction 23 at Rogier. In Hampshire, a collision on the A34 northbound between the junctions with the A303 and A343 has closed one lane, with delays expected until 6 this evening. And on the trains, Thameslink reports major disruptions between London St Pancras International and London Blackfriars, and Cross Country is experiencing disruptions on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com gbenews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Well, good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and across to all of you in the United Kingdom. Well, breaking news. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping tomorrow afternoon. Labour Minister Stephen Morgan insisted to GB News they're committed to ending the Migrant Hotel.
I know the Home Office are leading the way in getting this right, listening to people's concerns and taking appropriate action.
Yes, and boats sail as French cops bail. French police officers refuse to stop illegal migrants crossing the channel, partly because the water is just too cold. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey told GB News Brexit is to blame.
And others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage, who's been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer, should start with an apology.
It's the biggest design change in 175 years as solar-panelled post boxes are to be rolled out across the country. I'll be joined by the Secret Society of Hertford knitters who are up in arms now that they've been blocked from decorating these new woke post boxes. Yeah, what do you think of woke post boxes? Whatever will it be next? I wonder what these solar panel things are going to be actually powering, because you don't need to power a post box, do you? But we'll find out more, of course. I want to hear from you. What do you think? gbnews.com/yours. But before all of that, it's time for your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Alex, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories and breaking news in the last few moments that 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping in Essex at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The Home Office and Samani Hotels, which owns the site, are attempting to challenge a High Court judge's decision last week to issue an interim injunction to Epping Forest District Council that will stop dozens of asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel beyond the 12th of September. The government is also seeking to appeal against Mr Justice Ayres' decision not to allow it to intervene in the case while the council opposes the appeal bids. Elsewhere, Russia's ambassador to the UK was summoned to the Foreign Office today after major strikes on Kyiv. The death toll has now risen to at least 18 people, including 4 children, one just 2 years old. Sir Keir Starmer condemned the assault, saying Putin is killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. Rescuers are still searching through rubble in the capital after missiles tore into homes and offices overnight. Sir Keir Starmer is replacing his top civil servant at Downing Street. Nin Pandit, the principal private secretary who's only been in the job for 10 months, is expected to move to another government role. She's the third senior figure to depart from Sir Keir's inner circle since Labour took office, following Sue Gray and Matthew Doyle. Downing Street insists the Prime Minister retains confidence in Pandit, but her exit comes amid growing talk of a wider reshuffle of junior ministers after the summer recess. The Treasury is weighing up a new tax on landlords by imposing national insurance on rental income. According to The Times, officials believe the move could raise around £2 billion ahead of Rachel Reeves' autumn budget. Supporters say it targets what they call unearned revenue while avoiding Labour's pledge not to raise VAT, income tax or NIC rates. But the plan comes amid warnings the Chancellor faces a £41 billion shortfall in the public finances by 2030. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says he'll boycott Donald Trump's state banquet next month in protest over the US president's stance on Gaza. Mr Trump's state visit is due in mid-September, but the banquet's set to be one of the centrepieces. He stressed his decision was not aimed at the king, writing to Charles personally to underline his respect. He insists he and his wife prayed about it before deciding, saying his Christian faith made it impossible to attend.
This decision, which, as I say, was very difficult, was to highlight the fact that Donald Trump, coming to our country, is the one man who can bring an end to all this. And our media, yourselves, and the government, and frankly, the British public, need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
In other news today, none of the main childhood vaccines in England hit the 95% uptake target last year, with measles protection at its lowest in more than a decade. New figures from the UK Health Security Agency show just 84% of 5-year-olds had received both doses of the MMR jab in 2024 to 2025. That's the lowest since 2009. The North East had the highest coverage, while London recorded just 70% uptake of the 6-in-1 vaccine, which protects against tetanus and polio, among others, did rise slightly, marking the first increase since 2019. Health officials warn patchy coverage leaves children vulnerable to outbreaks of preventable disease. And 4-time Tour de France winner Chris Froome has been airlifted to hospital after a crash during training. The incident took place in the south of France, near Toulon. The 40-year-old Brit is reportedly in a stable condition and will have back surgery after suffering a fracture and 5 broken ribs. He did not receive any head injuries, though. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3504 and €1.1589. The price of gold is £2,512 and 14 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is currently at 9,215 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, breaking news, 3 senior judges will rule tomorrow afternoon whether to overturn a temporary injunction blocking asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping. GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us live from outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Mark, bring us the latest.
Well, the appeal court judges said that they realised the urgency of the matter before them, and that's why they are going to endeavour to try to get that judgment by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. They did suggest, though, there is the possibility they might not be able to get to a judgment in that time, and if that is the case, it may be Monday or so of next week before we get a judgment. But they are going to try their level best, it seems, to come to a judgment by 2 o'clock tomorrow, and that would be in the form, according to the judges, of a televised delivery. So in the same way that the Supreme Court is televised and their judgments and the reasons for those judgments read out, that is what the Court of Appeal here will attempt to do it 2 o'clock tomorrow. So if that is the case, we'll bring that to you live, of course, on GB News. But clearly an important issue for all concerned, for the Home Office, who've been arguing to be included in this process and then to be able to appeal the judgment that was handed down, the ruling that was handed down in the High Court last week, giving this interim injunction to Epping Forest District Council with regard to the asylum seekers in the Bell Hotel. It's important, the Home Office say, because it has very significant impact on the way that the Home Secretary conducts the statutory duty of housing asylum seekers in hotels. Although this government is, they say, committed to ending hotel use for asylum seekers by the end of this Parliament, for the time being, it's an option that has to be used because there is a limited number of places elsewhere in the community. So it's important from that point of view. They believed that it would set a precedent, that injunction that was granted last week, and that more local authorities could seek to use the same type of planning legislation to get an injunction on hotels housing asylum seekers in their area. And to that end, of course, we have heard in the last week from a number of councils who say they are actively looking at legal advice to see whether they would have an ability to launch similar cases at the High Court. So clearly, the government is worried that, as I say, the floodgates would be opened and there could be a raft of similar appeals. From Epping Forest District Council's point of view, though, they believe that the right decision was reached last week, that any decision going against that could spark further anger within the community in Epping. Remember, there was some violence at one protest on a Thursday, but really since then it's been a protest that has been marked by mothers and children and other concerned people in the community mounting these pink protests as they've been dubbed. However, having said that, Epping Forest District Council, as part of their appeal to the Court of Appeal today, have raised the spectre of more potential disorder. So all of that has got to be weighed up by the Court of Appeal judges over the coming hours. And as I say, all going according to plan. If it does, we can expect a judgment at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mark White, there outside the Royal Courts of Justice. I think my big concern really is that where do they go after that? We know the government are going to be pushing them into HMOs, and I think that situation is far worse. It's not visible at the moment, but it's going to be a far worse solution. So there we go. Moving on, in yet another blow to Sir Keir Starmer's migrant deal with France, it turns out now that French police will defy orders to stop small boats filled with illegal migrants leaving for Britain. Union chiefs said they would tell border police not to intercept the migrant boats or even enter the water, partly because it's just too cold for them. Well, GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster joins me now. Catherine, quite a blow for the government, this one. Quite a blow. We heard the news yesterday the French government might be collapsing. That also could put many of these deals up in the air. Perhaps we just need to stop trusting the French with our borders.
Well, yes, we've given them hundreds and hundreds of millions, and the numbers crossing the channel are up 50% this year on last. Record numbers. Yes, the French government may well collapse on Monday. Yes, this much-touted scheme that was announced a couple of months ago by the Prime Minister with Macron, saying it would be a game-changer that the French police could go into shallow waters. A, it's not even law yet and may not become law, but B, the French police union, Unité, is absolutely up in arms because they are basically saying our officers are not going to do this unless they are properly trained, properly equipped. And protected, and you can see from their point of view why they would not be keen to go in the water. And also there was a case in 2023 where French military police were charged because 27 migrants had drowned in the Channel, I think in 2021, and it was considered that they had not done enough to help. So from their point of view, you can see why they wouldn't be happy about it. But then, of course, we are spending hundreds of millions of pounds with the French for limited results. Although, of course, the French think a lot of this is our fault because we're simply too soft a touch. Yeah.
Too soft indeed. Well, let's listen to the words of Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey, who spoke to us earlier on about the small boats crisis.
The truth is, the small boats is a sign of policy failure. The Conservatives to blame. Actually, Nigel Farage is to blame. You know, before we left the EU, before Brexit, we had a returns agreement with every European country, which meant we could, through the Dublin Convention, automatically return people on small boats. And now that was broken. We don't have that legal power anymore. And the French and others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage, who's been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer, should start with an apology, and the Conservatives should apologise. They caused this problem.
Oh, well, there you go. That's what Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey said. Well, Tony Smith, former head of Border Force here in the UK, Catherine, said it was a red herring, what Ed Davey was saying there. What do you make of this Brexit being the problem here? Because, of course, Davey's pointing, saying Nigel Farage should apologise, and he said the Tories should apologise. But actually, is it the case that we could have returned tens of thousands of migrants to France?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, there is a kernel of truth in that under the Dublin Agreement, the theory goes EU countries can return an asylum seeker to the country at which they first came in. Looking back through some of the numbers, it seems that we did, under that agreement, send a few hundred people back in any given year. But the fundamental problem is this is a crisis, engulfing the whole of Europe. No European countries are that keen to have lots of asylum seekers. So countries like Italy, like Greece, did bear a disproportionate burden. And just also, the numbers of people crossing the Channel is very visible, and it has gone up massively, as we've seen. But in the early noughties, under Tony Blair, asylum claims were very high then, up to 103,000 at their peak. Now, they came in different ways. They overstayed their visas, they came in lorries and so on, so they were not as visible. But the processing was much, much faster, so it didn't become the political nightmare for the government then that it's doing now.
Yeah, 2002, I think it was sort of the peak there. And, of course, Labour have just surpassed that. This Labour government have just surpassed at 111,000 asylum claims. But let's just, Labour Minister, let's get some words of the Labour Minister here for early education, Stephen Morgan, who defended the government's record on the crisis earlier on.
Committed to ending asylum hotels by the end of this parliament. They're up at 400, they're now down to 200. We've removed 35,000 people that have no right to remain in the country, and also processing decisions much faster, up 28%. So taking action because it's a serious issue that requires us to restore order to the asylum system and bring fairness to the system as well.
Interesting stuff. Well, mass deportations, two words that's been on everyone's lips for the last 48 hours. And I'd like to bring in Daily Mail journalist Sue Reed, who says Germany is now proof Nigel Farage's deportation flights pledge can work. Sue, thanks for joining me. Of course, over the last couple of days, we've been really dissecting this here because there has been a lot of critics in the media saying, actually, this plan is a farce. It won't get through. Dominic Grieve was saying it wouldn't get through the courts. I mean, we've heard left, right and centre. But as you say, Germany are doing this now.
Well, Germany is interesting because they, of course, are the people who helped assist the problems that we're facing now. They have let in millions. And it went wrong very, very early on. Within 3 months, they had the Cologne mass rapes.
Yeah.
The very Christian place, which critics say it was deliberately chosen because it was a Christian monument, the Cologne Cathedral. It's a
beautiful cathedral. I've seen it. It's beautiful.
And so the Germans changed then. Their attitude changed then. And so they've been building up to this, but it has been a very slow burn. And Nigel Farage has to be aware, and I think he is aware, actually, for various reasons. I do know that the Germans have got facing massive red tape. And one of the things they've done this week is say that asylum seekers who failed will no longer have access to a lawyer. They won't pay for it. The state won't pay, so they can appeal and appeal and appeal. And the legal system is set up, both in Germany and here. You know, we've got immigration lawyers coming out of our ears.
We do.
Very well paid.
Making a lot of money these days, I would have thought.
And assist, really, in the problems about getting those people on a plane. Germany has done quite a lot of propaganda on this. I mean, they are propaganda, but they are also very interesting. Some state films on how they deport. And you can see they have grave problems. I mean, there are appeals, there are judges that have to decide, every excuse is used, and the numbers get whittled down, and finally off they go. And they are doing them, though, in that there have been 5 or 6 flights, which I in the last few days, one when I was still there.
Yeah.
And to Afghanistan, of course, as well.
And interestingly, they're using Qatar as an intermediary
for Afghanistan.
For Afghanistan, because they don't want to engage directly with the Taliban. Now, Nigel Farage hasn't suggested that they would do that, but it could be a model to explore, perhaps because Qatar seem very willing to intervene. But on the other hand, the Taliban have said they're ready and willing to work with Nigel Farage on this deportations plan. What do you think we'd have to give up to the Taliban in order to get them to sign up to this?
Well,
or do they just want their people back?
Give up too much, because I think the plight of women there is beyond all endurance. And I hope we wouldn't give in on any terror links either. But, and also there is another problem. We are waiting, you know, it's going to be another 4 years. And and I think a lot of critics of Nigel's proposal and plan, really. I mean, it is obviously a solid plan and good for him. But we are talking about, you know, 6,000, I think. Well, you know, that's nothing compared to what's coming in.
Indeed. And the cost per migrant is extremely high here, you know, to house them. And then, of course, we've got to talk about the burden in the long run, which we don't even really know what that will be yet.
The other thing the Germans are doing is gradually cutting off benefits to failed asylum seekers and to asylum seekers and to criminals and people who are convicted, etc. And there have been massive rapes and sexual assaults there, believe me. So they are using smaller benefits as a weapon.
As a deterrent.
And I think as a deterrent, and I personally think that's a very good idea.
Well, Sue, I mean, of course, Emmanuel Macron, famously at least, that we don't know if he said it for sure, but the papers did report that Emmanuel Macron did say or suggest to Keir Starmer that our weak benefit system here is a draw. But listen, Sue
generous.
Reid... Well, very generous, aren't we? Sue Reid, their Daily Mail journalist, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Well, coming up after...
British Council. As you can see, it's closed. I cannot access it. It's heavily damaged.
After major attacks on Kyiv severely damaged the offices of the British Council, Russia's ambassador has been summoned by the United Kingdom to the Foreign Office. I'll speak to a journalist at the scene. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you. For the Britain you love. For the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, the Foreign Office has summoned the Russian ambassador after at least 17 people were killed and the British council offices were severely damaged in major strikes on Kyiv overnight. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has condemned Russia's latest attack as senseless and accused Moscow of sabotaging hopes of peace. Well, joining me now to discuss this is correspondent from United 24 Media, Amira Barkush from Kyiv. Amira, thank you very much for joining me. What is the sense on the ground there? Are there many concerns that this may scupper a peace deal?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I am in downtown Kyiv right now. As you can see in the background, the building of the British Council. It's actually heavily damaged. I don't know if you can see, but I mean, inside everything is completely shattered. It's not working, everything is closed. I would love to show you the inside, but it's just impossible. And just around me, the rescue works are underway. Across the streets, 2 schools are damaged. Near me, a residential building is damaged. And this is just one site in Kyiv. You know, we know, like, as of now, actually already 19 people were pronounced dead. And up to 10 people are missing. I mean, there could be under rubble. So, I mean, it's a devastating strike today. And I don't know what peace deal are we talking about. Because, like, after the Alaska meeting and like, the strikes just got worse. Or what can I say? I don't know.
Amira, I think many people in the United Kingdom will wonder how much of it is being received at Kyiv itself. We hear a lot of it, of course, in the disputed territories now, and where the war is really raging on the front lines. But how often are you seeing strikes in the capital city?
Sorry, could you please repeat? Because the words are very noisy. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all, Amira. I was just asking, how regular are you getting strikes in Kyiv as opposed to the battlegrounds and the disputed territories?
One more time, please. I gotta move, because I can show you the works. I mean,
please, yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, show us what you can. Show us what you can, Amira.
Yeah. See, like that. Some heavy machinery is working, and it's just, yeah. The road is closed, so I cannot go there, but
And Mira, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear me slightly better. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me slightly better. How regular are you receiving strikes from Russia in the capital, Kyiv?
Yes. What, are you asking? Is it weird? I mean, it's been happening for the whole summer. It's nothing new, really. I mean, I guess they're changing their tactics a bit, because today I was talking to the press officer at the State Emergency Service, and she said that there is a new tactic, because like they kind of Russia used to send out drone first and follow it up with missiles, but today it was a bit different. They sent missiles first and then followed up with drones, which I don't know what's the what's the like goal with that, but I mean the press officer also said that more double taps are happening. It's like it seems that Russia is trying to target and hit the rescue workers who come to sites right away, because it's their job and they cannot.
And Amira, I don't know if you can hear me, okay, Amira, if you can hear me, do you think the goal of Russia here is to increase the violence, to force the Western allies into a peace deal, or do you feel it's unwilling to come to a peace deal whatsoever?
I mean, I cannot see how increasing violence could lead European allies and Western allies into a peace deal, that aligns with Russian worldview. I just cannot see it. I mean, because for Ukrainian people, I think it just makes them more angry and determined to protect what's theirs. It's, I don't know. The only message that I can see from Russia that they just keep doing what they have been doing the whole time. I think they are just saying that. I don't think they care for any peace deal. I don't see anything new from Russia.
Indeed, Amira, of course, you were saying it just a moment ago, but we can confirm, of course, 19 people now have died in these strikes. Of course, shocking to hear of any deaths when it comes to this war, as I was saying moments ago, because we believed a peace deal was just around the corner. Is the feeling, Amira, across at least the capital where you are in Kyiv, is the feeling from people that this peace deal was a complete farce, maybe a bit of a political stunt by Vladimir Putin?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I know any person around me who believes in this peace deal, to be honest. I mean, unfortunately, right? It sounds very nice, a peace deal, stop the violence, but we don't see it. It's like Ukraine has been through the cycle, of like peace negotiations that are not founded on any real guarantees, we don't see any willingness from Russia. Like, what guarantees are they proposing to Ukraine? I don't know. I cannot even name any.
And Amira, just very briefly, would the Ukrainian people be willing to settle for a peace deal if there was some exchange of territory, or does that seem off the cards to most Ukrainians?
You mean Ukraine, giving up on its land?
Correct.
I highly doubt that. I cannot really speak for all people. I'm only one person, but I just don't see that happening. A lot of people died for this, died for fighting for their country, for their land, for their home. I just don't see it happening. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
well, Amira Barkush, live from Kyiv, their correspondent from United 24 Media. Thank you so much for joining me and, of course, showing us those shocking scenes on the ground there. Please stay safe, Amira. Thank you again for joining us today. There's lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock. A leading economist has said the state pension age has to be pushed back to 75 years old. Well, he's joining me next, along with a very angry pensioner. See you shortly.
Alex, thank you. The top stories. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction, which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Russia's ambassador has been summoned to the Foreign Office after strikes on Kyiv killed at least 19 people, including 4 children, one just 2 years old. The Treasury is weighing a new tax on landlords by extending national insurance to rental income, a move that could raise £2 billion ahead of the autumn budget. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey insists he means no disrespect to the King by boycotting Donald Trump's state banquet next month. He says it's down to his Christian faith in opposition to the president's stance on Gaza.
British public need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers and also some frontal systems. And showers are set to continue for the first half of the evening, eventually easing away across central and eastern parts of England. But then a heavy band of rain skirting southern parts of England and Wales, moving its way eastwards. This likely turning heavy, particularly towards dawn, and a chance we could hear some thunder overnight too. Showers continuing across the northwest, but where we see any clear skies, it should feel a lot cooler and fresher than of late. So a wet start across parts of southeast England. Sussex and Kent, for example, will see some heavy downpours before eventually these outbreaks of rain will start to push into parts of East Anglia. A little drier and brighter across central and eastern parts of England, but in the west we'll still continue to see these showers feeding through, particularly northwest Scotland, where once again we could see some heavy showers, a risk of hail and thunder mixed in there too. Northeastern parts of Scotland a little brighter, but across the Northern Isles some low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. For a time, once again, across eastern parts of England, it will be brighter, but soon to be replaced by another day of sunny spells and showers. Showers most frequent across western areas, where at times it could be quite blustery, particularly around coastal spots, or if you catch any heavy downpours, we could see some strong gusty winds for a time. Temperatures around about average for the time of year, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, though a little fresher at times across the north in the breeze. Into the evening, showers continuing for a time before it will turn a little bit drier as we head towards Saturday morning. But Saturday is set to be another unsettled day. Low pressure sweeping in from the west with widespread strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain. So the unsettled theme continues along with average temperatures.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 eastbound at junction 6A is closed due to an incident causing significant delays. Use alternative routes. On the M4, traffic is slow between junctions 24 and 26. A broken down vehicle at junction 4's entry slip road leaves one lane shut. In Northamptonshire, the A43 northbound faces a 15-minute delay between junctions with the A413 and A5. Between A303 and A343 junctions, a collision closes one lane, resulting in 30-minute delays. And on the trains, Thameslink and Cross Country report disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong, on GB News. Could your retirement dreams be pushed back nearly a decade? A leading pensions expert says the state pension age should jump to 75, warning the system could crumble without change. Well, I'm now joined by Tom McPhail from the Pensions Monkey podcast. Tom, thank you so much for joining me. We talk about pension age rising quite a lot. Of course, it is a huge concern by many across the United Kingdom, because at the end of the day, you want to work and have a bit of a life at the end of it. But 75 seems extortionate, Tom.
A couple of boring numbers for you first, just to kind of put this into context. I'm sure everybody knows the population's getting older, and I'm sure everybody also knows the government's running out of money. So currently we have around 300 pensioners per 1,000 workers. Fast forward 50 years, it'll be 400 pensioners per 1,000 workers, and we'll have nearly 20 million people in this country over state pension age. And simple reality is that's going to cost a vast amount of money. The OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, has identified this as a key fiscal risk for the government. They've said if you fast forward another 50 years, the cost of the state pension will have gone up by around 50%. That's the equivalent in today's money of the state pension costing an extra roughly £75 billion a year every year. The triple lock's been fantastic, but that too is adding tens of billions of pounds a year onto the cost of the state pension. So the whole structure is unsustainable in the long term. So then the question is, well, okay, what can we do about that? How can we make sure that we end up with a system that continues to be fair and adequate and sustainable? And one way of doing this is to say, okay, we'll progressively increase the state pension age over the next 50 years, not suddenly, not abruptly. So we get to the point where the early 2070s, the state pension age is then gradually increased to 75. The advantages of that are that you can then significantly increase the amount of the state pension. So you can say to people, look, you'll get maybe £20,000 a year state pension in today's money. Not a fortune, but probably enough for people to live on at least, which the state pension struggles to achieve today, never mind tomorrow. And then you can say to people, look, if you want to retire at, say, 65, because a lot of people can't work to 75, well, okay, we need to make sure you've got enough private savings built up through the pension system so that you can retire at 60 or 65 in the knowledge that your private savings only have to last 10, 15 years to a point where the state pension can kick in. And if you're still alive at that point, the state will look after you for the rest of your life. And the important thing here is to say to the younger cohorts, the people in their 20s and 30s, if we don't do this, you may not get a state pension at all. So it's how do we come up with a solution that is sustainable in the long term?
Yeah, I guess, Tom, the reality is that men will live on average another 11 years after that state pension becomes effective. So 86, I believe, is the average age for men, 88 the average age for women. So basically saying to them, right, well, you can have state pension for 10 years, and then unfortunately that will be gone because you're more than likely to have passed away at that point. It's not a lot of time, is it, to enjoy your life? You might say you've worked all your life, maybe 50, 60 years in some cases, perhaps, and then the government is telling you, well, all that work, you might be older and frail, you could be sick, and then now you might be lucky to get a state pension, if at all. I think many people will see that trade-off as not worth it. Is there a risk that we actually just push more people into benefits at this point? Because people go, what's the point in working if I'm not even going to be able to get a pension at the end of it all?
Well, and I mean, a minor technicality, but perhaps an important point, the state pension is a benefit. Technically, it is a welfare benefit. And we come up with a system of contributions through the national insurance system that build up credit, but you don't have a right to that money. The government just says, well, if you pay this national insurance, we'll give you a state pension, but it comes out of the welfare budget. But to your earlier point, look, I agree with you. No one wants to have to work till they're 75, only live for 10 years, and then die, and that's just on average. That's what the state pension always used to do. So if you rewind 50 years or so and you look at the life expectancy numbers then, that was typically what would happen. Well, we're hopefully in a better position today where people tend to retire for longer, for 20 or 30 years, and that's fantastic. My point is that's not sustainable under the current model. So what we have to say to people is, one, we need to make sure people are saving enough money through their private pensions that they have some money to live on in retirement, and then they don't have to work till they're 75. And two, when you do get to 75, there'll be a state pension there that will sustain you for the rest of your life, whether that's 5 years or 15 years or whatever. But if we don't do this, then the whole system will eventually fall apart and no one will get any state pension. And that doesn't seem to me like a better answer.
Yeah, difficult decisions to be made there. Tom McFell from the Pensions Monkey podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Joining me now is GB News viewer and WASPy woman, Ellen Russell. Ellen, thank you for joining me on this topic because, you know, many people, as I was saying, are told to work. You work hard. At the end of your life, you'll have a nice pension and you'll be able to retire with plenty of time with your family and children. That seems like it's ever creeping closer to being not so much of a reality for millions of people in the future. Is the system so broken that perhaps we need to drop the state pension entirely?
in my opinion, they need to look at where they're hitting. They're hitting again, they're hitting the working class people. People who are rich and people who have large pensions, private pensions, aren't sitting waiting on the state pension, which is £230 a week, half the amount of a living wage. So, and perhaps a lawyer has mentioned it in what he said, but the point here is, as they perhaps don't realise that as you get older, you get a lot less able mentally and physically. I was in a shopping mall yesterday, and there was a woman, obviously a cleaner, pushing one of those great big, like, barrel things around the shopping mall. This woman, God forgive me, but the woman looked ancient. She was quite deformed around the neck area, and her head was, obviously she had spinal issues. We're sitting with, people who are being forced to work. And if you walk along the streets, you've got a lot of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds sitting around the streets asking for money. So your young people aren't working, and your elderly people are being forced to work. And as I said, this isn't about the rich. It's about the working class people being hit once again. It's 75. Can you imagine being a carer and trying to lift people up? Can you imagine the strain that's going to put on ordinary people?
Ellen, I can only imagine, and as a young person myself, I think about my future as well, and I think, at what point in time, everyone's had it really rough here in the UK the last few years. At what point in time am I going to be able to save for a mortgage? On top of that, I've got to put money into a pension that I might not get. All these things, and it does make young people in particular wonder, and I think, going to your point about them not working, I think that there's such lack of inspiration to work, and I think that's a big fault of government policy that's constantly giving away benefits for free. You can come off and you can get benefits for almost anything for a young person. But Ellen, I totally appreciate it. I hope we don't turn into America where we see old people having to work at checkouts and things like that, because that feels unfortunately like our future. But Ellen Russell there, thank you so much for joining me. We'd love to hear from our viewers. Thank you, Ellen. I just want to clarify, of course, that this is not a plan yet. This is what an economist has advised we do as a country. So let's hope we don't take him too seriously. Anyway, if you're out in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst across many areas around the Mediterranean, it's looking largely fine as we go through tomorrow. There is some heavy thundery rain affecting some central parts. That all developed over parts of northern Spain and southern France, and has then made its way east-northeastwards to affect parts of northern Italy through today and tomorrow into the Western Balkans by the end of the week. Otherwise, a lot of fine weather to be had away from those thundery downpours affecting some places. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I remember being introduced to Ken Bates.
Chelsea.
Owned Chelsea, and just asked to sit down with him and then spend the next sort of 2 or 3 hours with him having lunch. And an ex of Donald Trump, Ivana Trump,
his
wife, and
Oh, you had dinner with her?
Yeah, I remember having dinner actually with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Did you?
Yeah.
You said earlier you couldn't think of any.
anyone. I was listing them.
I can't think of anyone. That literally just literally come into my head.
Hi, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Can we go back to that, please?
Catherine Zeta-Jones was. I used to live in a flat in Fulham, and I'm up at the top of the flat, and I was a sports reporter at the BBC, and I went round to Pizza Express, and I'm sitting eating, having my dough balls and everything else I was having. And reading the back pages of the papers in preparation for the work that I was doing the next day.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the cafe, and the beautiful, most stunning woman, Catherine Zeta-Jones, was walking by, and she said, "Oh, hello, Eamon." And then Welsh accent.
Really?
Hello, Eamon. How are you? And we were standing talking, and we were nattering away, and she said, "Anyway, why are we standing talking in the street? Have you eaten?"
And I went, said no.
No, I didn't say no. I went, no. And I went inside, and I remember Pizza Express was empty. And the waiter saw me again, and I went and sat down with Catherine, and he said, "And you, sir, are you eating?" And I went, "Yes." He said, "What are you having?" I said, "Could I have the dough balls?" And I've never been able to eat dough balls again since.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, the Royal Mail might struggle to deliver our letters on time. They certainly do for me. But don't worry, they've got their priorities right. They're rolling out what they call post boxes of the future, also dubbed woke boxes, which are solar-powered and scan barcodes to allow people to post parcels. However, a group of knitters are feeling needled by the new post boxes as they can no longer decorate them with knitted and crocheted toppers. Well, let's speak to one of those knitters now, Melanie Delaney, who is a member of the Hertford Knitters Secret Society. Melanie, thank you so much for joining me. Now, there's 115,000 post boxes in the UK from the Royal Mail. These are these old, beautiful ones, the ones that we all know and love, the beautiful red post boxes. I'm guessing you've done quite a few of them around, up and down the country. How do people, first of all, know where your work is?
The Secret Society boxes and other things for and where. You will see post boxes decorated up and down the country, and they're all done independently. So that's how that happens.
Beautiful. I've got one in my local area, actually, and it's stunning. And the kids running around, they love it. They love looking at the different things you do to those post boxes. But, of course, the Royal Mail have announced they're going to have these new solar-powered post boxes. I don't know if we've got some images to show you at some point. Hopefully we can show you some of those in just a second. How is that going to impact your work?
Okay, well, in Hertford and Ware, we have 37 post boxes. And in fact, I live just down the road from one that was a trial with the solar panel on the top. So we've seen them, and we do think the Royal Mail do need to move with the times, to be honest. So we do understand why they're doing that. And we feel to be the ones that aren't. The Royal Mail, it has to be said, absolutely love our work, and so we're keen to be able to carry on decorating them. And also, it has to be said that the public absolutely love the decorated post boxes. In fact, I'm on a Facebook group called UK Post Box Toppers and More, and there is 137,000 people on that group, and they're not just knitters in the UK. They're people from all over the world who love to see the art that appears on the top of our iconic post boxes.
Well, I think, is this one of your pieces of work we can see on the screen now, Melanie?
Yes, I did make that, yes.
Talk us through that one there.
Okay, so that post box was decorated. We did a series for the coronation, and that is the Gold State coach, and inside there's actually a king and queen, knitted king and queen there inside, and that it took a few months to make and some logistical engineering works to get that to be able to stand upright on a post box. And it was an absolute joy to make. I absolutely loved everything about the coronation. And for me personally, it was really lovely to be able to make something to celebrate such a public.
Unfortunately, Melanie, we've just lost you for a second there, but very, very briefly. So you can't do anything with these solar panels because, of course, at the top of them, you wouldn't be able to put any of your work because it would stop the solar panels from working. Is that right? Now, they're saying they're going to roll out 3,500 of these. Is there a way you can still partner with the Royal Mail?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from my calculations, that's about 3% of the post boxes that are going to have the solar panels on them. So that leaves a lot more that we can still cover. So I'm sure that when the mood strikes, we will be covering that. But also, it has to be said that yarn bombing, which is what we do, doesn't just cover post boxes. Most recently, this summer, we did a big display celebrating Hartford's rivers. And we yarn bombed an area called Parliament Square, which is surrounded.
Okie dokie. Sorry, we just lost you at the end there, Melanie, but thank you so much for joining us. That was Melanie Delaney there, a member of the Hartford Knitters Secret Society. Beautiful, beautiful work, isn't it? Well, the Royal Mail, in response to this story, have said this. Jack Clarkson is the Managing Director of Out of Home and Commercial Excellence at the Royal Mail. He said this: we are sending and returning more parcels than ever before. This trend will only continue as online shopping shows no signs of slowing, particularly with the boom of second-hand marketplaces. Our message is clear. If you have a Royal Mail label on your parcel and it fits, put it in the postbox and we'll do the rest. Anyway, coming up, French police officers refuse to stop the illegal migrants crossing the channel because it's cold. It's cold in the water, isn't it? And Lib Dem leader Ed Davey is, of course, blaming Brexit. What's new? We'll be bringing you some more analysis on that. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers and also some frontal systems. And showers are set to continue for the first half of the evening, eventually easing away across central and eastern parts of England. But then a heavy band of rain skirting southern parts of England and Wales, moving its way eastwards. This likely turning heavy, particularly towards dawn, and a chance we could hear some thunder overnight too. Showers continuing across the northwest, but where we see any clear skies, it should feel a lot cooler and fresher than of late. So a wet start across parts of southeast England. Sussex and Kent, for example, will see some heavy downpours before eventually these outbreaks of rain will start to push into parts of East Anglia. A little drier and brighter across central and eastern parts of England, but in the west we'll still continue to see these showers feeding through, particularly northwest Scotland, where once again we could see some heavy showers, a risk of hail and thunder mixed in there too. Northeastern parts of Scotland a little brighter, but across the Northern Isles some low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. For a time, once again, across eastern parts of England, it will be brighter, but soon to be replaced by another day of sunny spells and showers. Showers most frequent across western areas, where at times it could be quite blustery, particularly around coastal spots, or if you catch any heavy downpours, we could see some strong gusty winds for a time. Temperatures around about average for the time of year, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, though a little fresher at times across the north in the breeze. Into the evening, showers continuing for a time before it will turn a little bit drier as we head towards Saturday morning. But Saturday is set to be another unsettled day. Low pressure sweeping in from the west with widespread strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain. So the unsettled theme continues along with average temperatures.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 is closed eastbound at junction 6A due to a traffic incident, prompting drivers to find alternative routes and anticipate delays. Congestion is delaying traffic on the M4 westbound between junction 24 Coldra and junction 26 Malpas. In Surrey, a broken-down vehicle on the M25 clockwise between junction 10 and 11 has resulted in one of 4 lanes being closed, causing 15-minute delays. And on the trains, disruptions affect Thameslink services between London St Pancras International and London Blackfriars. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, breaking news from earlier this afternoon. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping. That is tomorrow afternoon. Labour Minister Stephen Morgan insisted to GB News they're committed to ending the migrant hotels.
The Home Office are leading the way in getting this right, listening to people's concerns and taking appropriate action.
Boat sail as French cops bail. French police officers refuse to stop illegal migrants crossing the channel, partly because the water's too cold, apparently. Lib Dem leader said Sir Ed Davey told GB News Brexit is to blame.
And others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage has been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer. Should start with an apology.
Ryanair staff are being given bigger bonuses if they intercept passengers with oversized cabin bags. Their big boss says he isn't sorry for doing it either. Is this fair, or are we becoming a society of snitches? Lots of stuff about snitches lately, isn't there? The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has said she doesn't like snitches. She once got a student expelled, apparently, so she says, for snitching. So what do you make of it? Do you think we should become a society of snitches? gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Alex, thank you very much. The top stories. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping. at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The Home Office and Samani Hotels, which owns the site, are attempting to challenge a High Court judge's decision last week to issue an interim injunction to Epping Forest District Council that will stop dozens of asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel beyond September the 12th. The government is also seeking to appeal against Mr Justice Ayre's decision not to allow it to intervene in the case, while the council opposes the appeal bids. Russia's ambassador to the UK was summoned to the Foreign Office after major strikes on Kyiv. The death toll has now risen to at least 19 people, including 4 children, one just 2 years old. Sir Keir Starmer condemned the assault, saying Putin is killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. Rescuers are still searching through the rubble in the capital after missiles tore into homes and offices overnight. In Westminster, Sir Keir Starmer is replacing his top civil servant at Downing Street. Nin Pandit, the principal private secretary who's only been in the job for 10 months, is expected to move to another government role. She's the third senior figure to depart from Sir Keir's inner circle since Labour took office, following Sue Gray and Matthew Doyle. Downing Street insists the Prime Minister retains confidence in Pandit, but her exit comes amid growing talk of a wider reshuffle of junior ministers after the summer recess. The Treasury is weighing up a new tax on landlords by imposing national insurance on rental income. According to The Times, officials believe the move could raise around £2 billion ahead of Rachel Reeves' autumn budget. Supporters say it targets what they call unearned revenue, while avoiding Labour's pledge not to raise VAT, income tax or NIC rates. But the plan comes amid warnings the Chancellor faces a £41 billion shortfall in the public finances by 2030. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says he will boycott Donald Trump's state banquet next month in protest over the US president's stance on Gaza. Mr Trump's state visit is due in mid-September, with the banquet set to be one of its centrepieces. He stressed his decision was not aimed at the king, writing to Charles personally to underline his respect. He insists he and his wife prayed about it before deciding, saying his Christian faith made it impossible to attend.
This decision, which, as I say, was very difficult, was to highlight the fact that Donald Trump, coming to our country, is the one man who can bring an end to all this. And our media, yourselves, and the government, and frankly, the British public, need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
A Metropolitan Police Special Constable has been found guilty of raping and sexually assaulting a child. James Bubb, who now identifies as a woman named Gwyn Samuels, groomed one of his 2 victims online before sexually assaulting her when she was just 12 years old. The 27-year-old from Buckinghamshire was also found guilty of raping a woman he met online whilst posing as a 16-year-old girl. Amersham Law Courts was told the defendant, who's still identified as male at the time of the alleged offences, would be referred to by biological sex throughout the trial. And 4-time Tour de France winner Chris Froome has been airlifted to hospital after a crash during training. The incident took place in the south of France near Toulon. The 40-year-old Brit is reportedly in a stable condition, will have back surgery after suffering a fracture and 5 broken ribs. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3511 and €1.1581. The price of gold, £2,520, 98 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 9,213 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, let's get to a reminder of the breaking news from the last hour. 3 senior judges will rule tomorrow afternoon whether to overturn a temporary injunction blocking asylum seekers from being housed at the now infamous Bell Hotel in Epping. Well, listen, obviously you'll be braced for that decision tomorrow, and I wouldn't hold your breath too much for good news, but I will say this. If that appeal is upheld and the hotels up and down the country also see challenges, ask yourself where those migrants are going next. because they're not going to be put into camps like the leader of the opposition. I know I had a big row with Kemi Badenoch yesterday. I did get a little bit shouty with her towards the end, so I apologise to her for that. But I'm very passionate about this problem. I know many of you are at home as well. And for me, the problem when we challenge the hotel situation is this. Those migrants are going to be forced into HMOs up and down the country. They're going to be living on the doorsteps of people like you listening at home, you listening and watching at home. And I think that situation is far worse than having them in hotels. I don't want them in hotels either, just to be clear. But it's far worse to have them in HMOs and your rents go up in the area. You don't know who's living next door to you. And I think if you looked at the situation that happened in Northern Ireland last year, this will be worse for the country. I would, of course, prefer all of these migrants to be deported. They shouldn't be here in the first place. I have very, very no-nonsense policy on that one. But that isn't going to happen. Not under this government. They don't seem to ideologically believe in it. They are, of course, claiming that their deportations are higher than ever. But I think the proof will be in the pudding. The numbers are going up and up and up. The deterrent isn't working, or what they call the one-in, one-out deal as a deterrent isn't working. And quite frankly, I am concerned that if the hotels go, that the HMOs will be the next solution. And I think we should all be asking our question, celebrate the victory of the hotels being closed down, but ask yourself, what happens next, and is it worse? That's what I'd ask you all at home. Let me know what you think, gbnews.com/YourSay. But let's move on in yet another blow to Sir Keir Starmer's migrant deal with France, because it turns out now that the French police will defy orders to stop small boats being filled with illegal migrants from even leaving for Britain. The union chief said they would tell border police and others not to intercept the migrant boats or even enter the water, partly because it's just too cold for them. Deary me. Well, GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster joins me now. Catherine, this is a real pain in the side for Sir Keir Starmer here when he's fighting this immigration battle on so many different fronts. We're talking about the hotels appeal tomorrow, which the Home Office just about got in last minute to make this appeal. We're talking about the French government potentially collapsing, which will also be trouble for his other deals he struck with France. We've got the French unions are basically saying we're not going to do this. The water's too cold, and that's another pain for Keir Starmer.
Yes, it absolutely is. He said he would smash the gangs. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of millions on various deals with the French, and the numbers are up 50%. We are in a record-breaking year. So, yes, the French government may collapse on Monday. It's only a couple of months since the Prime Minister stood there and announced, well, there's been two announcements, hasn't there? The one in, one out. Well, that hasn't got going yet. We have detained 100 migrants, but they haven't yet been sent back to France. Will that be a deterrent? The government says so, but the numbers coming the other way would make you wonder. But then also they said that this deal allowing the police to go into shallow waters up to 300 metres from the shore would be a game changer. First of all, it's not even law yet and may not become law, but also the French police union have basically said no. Because they say that, unless their officers are properly trained, properly protected, properly equipped, they're just not having it. This is the police union Unité. And in fairness to the French, the union has to look after its own workers. There was a case back in 2023 where French military police were charged over the deaths of migrants in the Channel because they had allegedly not done enough to try to save lives. So you can understand from the French police's point of view, individual policemen not very keen to go in the water. And ultimately, the French do blame us. Yes, this is a European problem, but these people that are desperate to come across to England, they're crossing from a safe country, a very safe and prosperous country. A lot of them are economic migrants. A lot of them have had asylum claims turned down elsewhere in Europe. The French think that we are being far too welcoming to people when they get here, and so in some ways, this is a problem of our own making.
Yeah, those words allegedly from Emmanuel Macron to Keir Starmer when he had that small visit, that state visit. That's what the press were reporting, at least. But it seems that perhaps the penny's dropping in the Labour Party because Jack Straw, David Blunkett, of course, former very famous Blair Secretaries of State, they have broken ranks, and they said that the ECHR needs to be revisited. We need to decouple from it or put a pause on it. Do you think now that the tide is potentially turning even within the Labour ranks as they look down the barrel? And I think you were saying this to me last hour, Catherine. This is the number one thing that toppled the Tories. This lost them the election. I think everyone can agree that actually the migrant crisis is what lost them the election. Of course, Keir Starmer was promising smash the gangs. This is going to solve it. That doesn't seem to be working. They're actually smashing less gangs than the Tories were. Do you think now the penny's dropped in the Labour Party, or it's starting to?
I think the penny has dropped with... Look, Starmer, they do realise in number 10 this is an existential crisis for them, and if they don't deliver, they are going to be punished, just like the Conservatives were. But yes, within the Labour Party, you've got hundreds of Labour MPs. Their majorities are much, much smaller. The average majority is much less than it was, post the last election. Looking at their majorities, looking at the polls, the latest of one which has put reform on more than the Tories and Labour combined, and thinking, I'm toast at the next election if they don't, A, get a grip on this, and B, make people feel better off. And at the moment, there's no chance of that. Now, we just feel like we've swapped one soundbite, stop the boats, for another soundbite, smash the gangs. And I've said to the Prime Minister, where's your deterrent? And he said, smashing the gangs is the deterrent. Well, A, they are clearly not smashing the gangs. And B, if you don't have a deterrent, there's so many people will just keep coming. And of course, that is what Nigel Farage is offering.
Well, talking of Nigel Farage, Sir Davy, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, had some words for him regarding Brexit. Hopefully we can play that clip for you just now.
The truth is, the small boats is a sign of policy failure. The Conservatives to blame. Actually, Nigel Farage is to blame. Before we left the EU, before Brexit, we had a returns agreement with every European country, which meant we could, through the Dublin Convention, automatically return people on small boats. And now that was broken. We don't have that legal power anymore. And the French and others have made it very difficult for us to return these people in small boats. It's got far, far worse. We didn't have this problem before Brexit. So I think Nigel Farage, who's been very vocal, hasn't he, over the summer, should start with an apology, and the Conservatives should apologise. They caused this problem.
Interesting stuff there, Catherine. He's, of course, blaming Nigel Farage, but also, more importantly, blaming Brexit for this crisis. He, of course, makes the claim that we could be deporting... well, it seems he's making the claim we could be deporting these tens of thousands of migrants coming over here back to France. Now, you were looking at this a little bit earlier on, Catherine. Does that hold up to scrutiny?
No, it doesn't really, because he's talking about the Dublin Agreement within the EU, that asylum seekers are supposed to claim asylum in the first country they land in, so often Greece or Italy. So theoretically, because we're not party to that, Brexit has made it harder. But looking at the figures, it seems to be that under that, we only ever managed to send back a few hundred in any given year. And we've seen this is a problem right across Europe. And, countries do not want to share the burden of this. Greece and Italy, were largely left on their own. There's so much squabbling because this is not a problem just by us. But, when Ed Davey says this is a problem that didn't exist before Brexit, sure, people were not crossing the channel on small boats, but people were coming in lorries. They came in a different way. They were overstaying visas. And under Tony Blair at the beginning of the noughties, there were 103,000 people claiming asylum, but they were being processed much, much quicker.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, they've just obviously topped that. That was the all-time record, I believe, at that number there, Catherine. And they've now, of course, topped it. There we go. So maybe, yeah, lots of interesting stuff there. Thank you so much, Catherine Forster. Appreciate that. Well, let's now speak to journalist Alexander Seal. Alexander, thank you so much for joining me. Now, this is quite a difficult time for Sir Keir Starmer. We were just talking there about some of his grandees in the Labour Party breaking rank. David Blunkett, Jack Straw, all saying that actually we need to look at the situation in the ECHR. I believe even Tony Blair before, even in the years gone by, has said actually they need to get tougher on immigration. Is it the case that Labour's going to have to start pivoting now? It does seem like the polls are not swinging in their favour anytime soon. Do you think there's going to be a change of heart?
I think so, because one has to look at the polls, and if there is another election, Reform UK could well win the next election. But because, as your colleague Catherine said, union chiefs in France aren't going to stop the small boats. In June, the French cabinet, they pledged to change the way maritime law was interpreted to allow police officers to stop the boats in France and just 300 meters from the coast. And now they're not going to do that because they're not properly trained. So it's a problem for the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and also for Emmanuel Macron.
Indeed, and Alexander, of course, we heard the news the other day that the French government may collapse, given the difficult situation over there, and of course there's no majority, and therefore President Macron is working with what he can. How else could that impact any deals that the United Kingdom has done with France on this matter?
Well, one has to wait after September 8th, when the French Prime Minister François Bayrou has a vote of no confidence. So either he could collapse or either he could stay on, but I won't see the French police or gendarmes stopping the boats anytime soon. And if there is a new government, there are rumors that Emmanuel Macron could name perhaps a left-wing government to appease the far left in France. So if there is a new government, then we won't see French police stopping the boats.
Yeah, and Alexander, I think many people will be asking this, and I was talking to a former border force chief here from the UK, and he said, well, he sympathised with the French police there because why on earth would they want to put their lives on the line to stop migrants that are fleeing their country that they don't particularly want in France in the first place to go to the United Kingdom? Is there some truth to that, do you believe?
I think so, because in France, people always blame the police when they use tactics that they don't like. So they always blame the police, and they're not properly trained. So it's really a big problem. And in France, also, the Rassemblement National, Marine Le Pen's party, is doing quite well in the polls. If Emmanuel Macron, the French president, decides to dissolve the National Assembly, then the Rassemblement National would perhaps win the election, the snap election. So, and also they want security, better security, so a bit like what Nigel Farage wants for the UK.
Indeed, and of course, Marine Le Pen's party will not be, I'm sure, too fond of the idea of the United Kingdom sending migrants back to France, which, of course, you can't blame them, can you? Alexander Sill, journalist, thank you very much for joining me to discuss this. We can also...
You're welcome.
Thank you. We can now speak with crime and immigration commentator Danny Shaw. Danny, thank you very much for joining me on this topic. Of course, not good news for the Prime Minister. Today, another one of his immigration policies that he would claim that is trying to deter this migrant crisis seems like it could be going up in flames. What is the Labour Party going to do? It's ideologically against the idea of mass deportations of illegal migrants, which would be the ultimate deterrent in many people's opinion. But now it can't even get the most basic, seemingly the most basic deal with France off the ground because of domestic matters in France.
Well, there's no doubt that it is a blow. I always thought it was unlikely that we would see large numbers of French police wading into the waters to stop the boats from sailing to England. I think there might be a couple of isolated cases where that happens, but I couldn't see it happening on any large scale. So I didn't really see that policy as a game changer. I think the one-in, one-out deal has the potential to act as a deterrent if it's ramped up significantly with lots and lots of people being seen to go back. But at the moment, we don't even know when the first people who've been detained are going to be returned to France. The numbers are very small, so that's going to take some time. The other measures that have been introduced, the closer working with EU and with other partner countries, getting Germany to change the law, and so on. These are all, helpful steps. But I do still think that unless people see that if they come to the UK, they'll be immediately removed to France, the country that they left. I don't see there being a sufficient deterrent there. That's the only real policy that I think can work. I don't happen to think that the mass deportations is realistic. I don't see how it can be achieved. You cannot build detention capability for 24,000 people within 18 months, as Nigel Farage wants to do. I think that's pie in the sky. At the moment, the detention capacity is around about, I think, just over 2,000. You can't even get planning permission. You can't even get approval. You can't even get political support, the previous government, for turning RAF Scampton into an asylum accommodation centre, or Linton on Ouse in Lincolnshire. So how on earth are you going to identify the sites and overcome the political objections to house 24,000 people? That's not a credible or realistic alternative.
Yes, and well, let's just focus on the ECHR for a moment, Dan, if you don't mind, because as we were talking about mass deportations there, of course, Reform UK pledging to withdraw from the ECHR and other treaties. Now, I was saying this to our political correspondent here, Catherine Forster, that Jack Straw and David Blunkett have come out and said that actually we do need to decouple from the ECHR and other treaties that may hinder our ability to leave, to deport illegal migrants. Is Keir Starmer losing the room? Is he losing the room here? And a poll today puts Keir Starmer almost neck and neck with the Tories, and they're barely hitting 15, 16 points in some cases. Even joint together, they would still only be equal the 34% reform zone. And I'm just taking that as an example here. But of course, it shows perhaps that the public, his message on migrant crisis is being lost.
I think ministers and the Prime Minister should pay a little less attention to the polls and a bit more attention to actually solving the problems. And if they begin to solve the problems and people see that asylum hotels are being closed and that small boat crossings are coming down, then I think, public opinion will swing in their favour. I think the worst thing to do is to go for some knee-jerk response because of the opinion polls. We are 3 to 4 years away from a general election. The government should be thinking about governing and not acting on opinion polls. Obviously, you have that in mind, but it should not be the foremost consideration in my view. In terms of the Human Rights Act and so on, I think what David Blunkett was proposing was some kind of temporary decoupling, if you like, for immigration and asylum purposes to try and sort out the problem. I do think that there are changes that need to be made to the regime of human rights and to the application, particularly by the courts. And there is a review underway by the government of Article 8, the right to privacy and family rights. And I think it's important that we wait to see what that review comes up with. There is definitely scope for change in that respect, but I don't think that coming out of all these international treaties is the right way to go. It will leave the UK as some kind of pariah state alongside Belarus and Russia.
OK, Danny Shaw, crime and immigration commentator there. Thank you so much for joining me. Unfortunately, I disagree with Danny on that one. I genuinely think that, a lot of people are saying we might be close to a general election now, given the economic circumstances. I think Labour have got to get on top of this ASAP. But anyway, still to come, the cost of switching off wind farms has been blamed for pushing up household energy bills by as much as £15 a year. We'll break down the true cost of green energy next. This is GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong, on GB News. Could wind farms be to blame for rising energy bills? Well, according to Ofgem, the cost of switching off wind farms when the grid is at full capacity is causing your bills to go up. This comes a day after the energy regulator announced that energy bills will, of course, also increase by £35. Well, let's get the thoughts now of author of Sceptical Environmentalist, Bjorn Lomberg. Bjorn, thank you so much for joining me. Bad news for Britain because our government is investing very heavily in net zero. Are wind farms a farce?
They're certainly very expensive. So, Alex, yes, climate change is a real problem, but the way we're trying to address it by simply saying we're going to spend lots and lots of money, and remember other people's money, your money and mine. Well, I don't live in the UK, but I still get very high energy prices sometimes. Spending regular people's money to try to do something that's still not ready is just incredibly costly. And remember, nobody else around the world is looking at the UK and saying, ooh, that's what we should be doing. We want to have incredibly high energy prices and do nothing for climate. Not a good deal.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, President Trump, who was here recently on a golf visit, at least. He wasn't here on an official state visit, but he was here over here in the United Kingdom. He slammed wind farms, and he's been slamming our energy policies here for the last few days. He said wind farms are ugly. He says that they are not very environmentally friendly and that we should drill, baby, drill. Well, some Nordic countries have been continuously exploring North Sea oil, Norway, of course, being the big benefactor of that. Our government stopped exploring North Sea oil. Have we missed a trick there, Bjorn?
So again, we shouldn't necessarily take this as gospel just because Donald Trump tells us, but it's important to recognize that yes, most of the world still runs on fossil fuels. It has done so for the last at least 40 years. And we're seeing a tiny bit of increase in some of the green stuff that we're using. But remember, we're also using much, much more fossil fuels because remember, most of the world wants to get rich. So this is not predominantly about Norway or even the UK or the US, but the fact is that more than 85% of all emissions in the 21st century are going to come from China, India, Africa, Indonesia, all of these other, developing nations that actually want to get rich. And they are not going to say, ooh, we want to have expensive energy, expensive electricity, and use less of it. We want to have more.
Bjorn, we just had a graph that you have put out up there. Can you just talk us through what that was?
Sure. And I should also just say I have actually updated it to 2024. But fundamentally what it shows is on the same level, you can see the U.S. electricity prices haven't really budged for, 3 decades. Whereas if you look at the UK, your energy prices just came down and down and down all of the 20th century. But since 2003, your energy prices has almost tripled. This is literally because you've decided to do all the most expensive things. People will tell you it's gas. But the reality, of course, is when you run a system and you almost only have energy that's very cheap when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, you need to have backup power. And that means you essentially have two systems. Sometimes you get it for zero. Sometimes you get it incredibly expensively. And what we see on average is you get energy or electricity very, very expensively. And remember, this is not just the UK. If you take all the countries where we have data, so about 70 countries around the world from the International Energy Agency, and say how much power do you get from solar and wind out the x-axis, and how much does your energy cost? It's not such that if you have lots of solar and wind, it becomes really cheap. No, it becomes really expensive. The UK is one example, but there are many others. Unfortunately, my native Denmark is one of them as well. So the reality here is it's not such that solar and wind is cheaper. Yes, it's cheaper when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, but the rest of the time, it makes all the electricity very expensive.
Yeah, and Bjorn, just a follow-up there, because the government, of course, would argue that this is a long-term investment in the United Kingdom's energy infrastructure and that this will pay off in the long run. Of course, during their last election, this government, the Labour government, pledged that it would lower energy bills by £300. Now, I believe our Energy Secretary said that promise is still yet to come to fruition. Of course, prices are going up here in the UK. But he said it will happen by the end of the Parliament or sometime in the future. Is he correct to say that, or are we looking at forever high energy prices?
It seems unlikely that that's going to happen. I mean, obviously, it's very easy to promise for stuff that's going to happen far into the future. But remember, you actually have to rebuild all of your renewable energy system in 15, 20 years. So you're going to have to re-incur all of those costs. And the fact still remains, if you want power 24/7, which you need as an advanced economy, you still need to have the backup system. And so the reality is, this is going to be very, very expensive. People love to say, oh, but we're going to fix it with batteries. But remember, the world has nowhere near batteries enough. We have batteries for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of electricity. You need to have it for 3 months. This is just so fantastically costly that it's never going to happen, even if batteries get to be much cheaper. So very likely that he's just not talking truth.
Oh, well, there we go. Author of Skeptical Environmentalist, Bjorn Lomborg, thank you so much for joining me. Well, earlier on GB News, we spoke to Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change, Professor John Grant. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not here to support the government in this, but I am here supporting renewable energy because it should be cheaper. And the idea that we're paying to not access energy that we've collected for free or could collect for free is an abomination. You know, that's just completely wrong. You're absolutely correct in that side. But it's because we haven't pursued this strongly enough.
Well, there you go. Plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But now your traffic and travel update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 is closed eastbound at junction 6A due to a collision. Drivers should take an alternative route and expect longer journeys. On the A45 eastbound between the M1 junction 15 and the A508 near Northampton, an accident is causing notable delays. In Surrey, a broken down vehicle on the M25 clockwise between junction 10 and 11 closes one lane, causing a delay until 8:15. And on the trains, Thameslink services are disrupted between London St Pancras International and London Blackfriars. And cross-country services face disruptions in Darlington and Exeter St David's. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. The top stories. 3 senior judges will rule on whether to overturn a temporary injunction which is set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Epping at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Russia's ambassador has been summoned to the Foreign Office after strikes on Kyiv killed at least 19 people, including 4 children. The Treasury is weighing a new tax on landlords by extending national insurance to rental income, a move that could raise £2 billion ahead of the autumn budget. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey insists he means no disrespect to the King by boycotting Donald Trump's state banquet next month. He says it's down to his Christian faith in opposition to the president's stance on Gaza.
British public need to make that clear to Donald Trump. He has to act to end this humanitarian crisis.
And those are the headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers and also some frontal systems. And showers are set to continue for the first half of the evening, eventually easing away across central and eastern parts of England. But then a heavy band of rain skirting southern parts of England and Wales, moving its way eastwards. This likely turning heavy, particularly towards dawn, and a chance we could hear some thunder overnight too. Showers continuing across the northwest, but where we see any clear skies, it should feel a lot cooler and fresher than of late. So a wet start across parts of southeast England. Sussex and Kent, for example, will see some heavy downpours before eventually these outbreaks of rain will start to push into parts of East Anglia. A little drier and brighter across central and eastern parts of England, but in the west we'll still continue to see these showers feeding through, particularly northwest Scotland, where once again we could see some heavy showers, a risk of hail and thunder mixed in there too. Northeastern parts of Scotland a little brighter, but across the Northern Isles some low cloud and once again a risk of some showery outbreaks. For a time, once again, across eastern parts of England, it will be brighter, but soon to be replaced by another day of sunny spells and showers. Showers most frequent across western areas, where at times it could be quite blustery, particularly around coastal spots, or if you catch any heavy downpours, we could see some strong gusty winds for a time. Temperatures around about average for the time of year, highs reaching around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, though a little fresher at times across the north in the breeze. Into the evening, showers continuing for a time before it will turn a little bit drier as we head towards Saturday morning. But Saturday is set to be another unsettled day. Low pressure sweeping in from the west with widespread strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain. So the unsettled theme continues along with average temperatures.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, the Co-op is making headlines again, this time by putting Palestinian beer on its shelves. That just comes weeks after banning Israeli goods. The retailer says it's proud to stock Tabor's Sun and Stone lager. Well, joining me now to discuss this is writer and broadcaster Jonathan Sacerdoti. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining me. Of course, this comes at a bit of a politically charged moment in time for the Co-op because they just banned Israeli goods from their stores. I believe it was part of a vote. They have a democratic process as part of the Co-op, of course, also a political party as well. Have you tried this? But I believe you have tried it. And what's your take on the story?
That's right. The Co-op is boycotting all Israeli products, but now it's stocking this Palestinian beer. Though it's not really Palestinian beer because they're going to be brewing it in Scotland under licence. But whatever. It's not really surprising, I think, because the Co-op often adopts these sorts of woke positions. And Co-op CEO Shireen Khoury actually has Palestinian heritage, so I suppose it's within their rights to do what they like. But it is strange, if you ask me. I have been to the Tiber Brewery, actually. I've met that lady you saw there in the photograph of the news coverage of it, Madis Khoury. I went there in 2017. I bought wine there from their winery and took it back to Tel Aviv, where I enjoyed it for Shabbat dinner, for the Friday night dinner with family. So it's not unusual for their products even to be consumed within Israel, of course. Now, the strange thing about it is I interviewed Madis Khoury after that 2017 visit. I interviewed her last year as part of a podcast I do, and she is a Christian. The reason she can brew alcohol and make wine in those territories is because she's a Christian. Now, imagine if Hamas won an election. They don't have them very often in the Palestinian Authority, but if Hamas won, this extremist jihadist Islamist organization, I wonder what would happen to her brewery, seeing as Islam takes a very uncompromising stance on alcohol. Islam treats it not merely as a private vice, but as a corrosive force on the individual and society. And the Quran culminates its teaching with a categorical prohibition. It says that it's a defilement from the work of Satan. So I think it's really a bit of a confused message when it comes to the Co-op's decision here. And it's also quite ironic that they're trying to make a point about what's going on with the Palestinians by using alcohol in this way.
Well, indeed, Jonathan. Well, we've got a clip of your interview with Madis Khoury. We'll just play that now if we can.
What happened with Hamas's attacks specifically on women on the 7th of October? How could you receive that? How did you react to that where you are? I'm talking about the gender-based violence that's been making its way out in the New York Times and elsewhere at the moment.
I've been living in this country for the past 17 years and doing business in the brewery and in the West Bank for 17 years. And I've never faced, any problems, me personally, when it comes to Hamas. Whether I'm in the West Bank or whether I'm in Gaza, also Palestinian women do get harassed and attacked by Israeli soldiers and settlers as well. So it's unsafe for us Palestinians and Palestinian women to move around in the West Bank as well.
Well, there we have it, Jonathan. And of course, you've tried the beverages from Tabor. What do you make of those?
Yeah, well, let me just say about that clip. I asked her, as a Christian woman in the West Bank, what she thought of what Hamas had done to women in Israel when they invaded on October the 7th. Hamas and other Palestinian terrorists, they raped and killed women. There was gang rape, individual rape, kidnapping, of course. She had literally nothing to say about that. All she had to say was this rather circumspect, well, life's not that easy for Palestinian women either, which I think was very mealy-mouthed of her. And I gave her a second chance in that interview to say, just as a woman, as an empowered businesswoman, a Christian woman, facing this same kind of Islamic jihadism yourself within your own society, don't you have anything to say about this disgusting, shocking behaviour towards women? And she refused twice to condemn it. So I think that's very important. And I think that the Co-op should be asking themselves whether or not they do want to stock beverages, however nice they might be, made by somebody who won't have condemned the sexual violence of October the 7th, when they are trying to put these sorts of ethics at the top of their buying decisions. So I think that's very important. They are choosing to buy from a Christian minority group that is producing a Christian minority group that she told me in that interview, Christian population in the Palestinian areas has gone down from 12 to 15% to something like 1%, I think she said at the time. And that's because of the Islamic persecution of Christians by groups like Hamas and by other Islamic groups in the Palestinian society. And that is who the Co-op are choosing to prioritise over products made by Jews in Israel after October the 7th. So I don't think it really matters whether the beer is particularly nice. I mean, it's basically an average beer. It's an average lager. It's not really worth it. But Co-op customers, it's a commercial decision. They probably love this because they're the kind of people who want to drink something. The slogan of that company is "Taste the revolution, drink Palestinian." So of course Co-op want to do that, but we all did taste the revolution on October the 7th. We saw exactly what the revolution looks like. I think they're really showing their true colours here.
Well, Jonathan Sakadozi, you've taken all the words out of my mouth. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about that interview, and let's play that clip as well. Thank you very much for joining us today. Well, Tabor Beer have been contacted for comment, and we will update you when we hear back from them. But Debbie White, COP's chairman, defended the move and said, as a business, we have a long-standing legacy of doing the right thing, supporting fair trade and championing ethical sourcing, as well as this, and this policy is a natural progression of this. Well, there you have it. Next, Ryanair staff are being given bigger bonuses if they intercept passengers with oversized cabin bags. Are we becoming a society of snitches? This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Got a lovely article on the Times Online about you and Maggie, your lovely dog, who is 17.
Yep.
But I was reading, and I have to ask you, about what happens when the day comes, when Maggie passes on.
Yeah.
You'd like to get her stuffed?
Well, the thing is, she's of stuffing size. You know, she's
taxidermy. I'm not sure about this.
She's quite good. She's about the size of a fox, so she is, and she could just sit very nicely on the mantelpiece.
Oh, you wouldn't want her on your mantelpiece. Look at her.
But why? Well, why
wouldn't it
would
upset you too much?
No, it wouldn't upset me. It would make me feel quite good. I have got a bronze statue of her made.
Oh, I like that statue. I've seen that before, yeah.
And when it was made, you had her and the statue together and you couldn't tell which was which, really. But they are. Look, it's love. Dogs bring out the best love in you. It's an unconditional love. You'll never experience anything else like it, and it's that way back from me. There she is. That was 17 years ago.
Oh, look at her.
Do you think I look any different?
You haven't changed a dot. You haven't changed a dot. She's gone a little bit grey, hasn't she? But she's still smiling. And if we've got the pictures from yesterday, she's got a big smile on her face.
Because she's an adopted dog, I think she appreciates, you know, the new home that she's got and the life that she was taken away from.
She's grateful, isn't she? I get that from her.
Well, I would. That's what I would like to think. That's what I like to think. And if you can, please adopt and do not shop.
Yeah, I'm in the market for a dog.
Yeah?
Yeah. After the honeymoon, I think we're going to start looking for a dog. That's the plan. So maybe honestly, early next year.
Go round one of the homing centres, you know, just adopt.
But I'd want to take all of them home. That would be my problem.
Well, that could well
I'd
be
end up with 50.
But what
Need a farm.
What a great choice to make.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Well, Ryanair are cracking down on so-called carry-on bag cheats, announcing they will increase the bonuses of staff that catch them. Well, join us to talk to me about this today is Simon Calder, who actually spoke to Ryanair's CEO about this policy and broke this story. Simon, welcome into the studio. Tell us a little bit about this conversation you had with the CEO of Ryanair.
OK, well, I'm going to take you back to, let's say, 2007. In those days, up until then, you would just, whenever you bought your ticket, you get 20 kilograms of baggage. Nobody bothered with cabin rules. Then, suddenly, the airline brought in a charge for baggage, and, of course, everybody thought, well, I'll take it on board then. And gradually, the amount that you can take on board has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. To be fair, this summer, it actually expanded a tiny bit to 40 by 30 by 20, which is roughly this bag.
Yeah, pop it on there so we can see it. There.
And so that's about the limit. But you will be familiar, as anybody who's been on a budget airline will know, that you've got those little sizing gauges at the gate, and then you have to try and squeeze it in. And what Michael O'Leary tells me is he's after the scammers who are trying to get away with taking a whole rucksack on board. And he says that actually people are in favour of this because they hate, if they've done their best to comply, they hate seeing people who've got away with it. So he is increasing the payment that's made to ground staff people from €1.50 to €2.50. That's about £2.25. So if you get caught, somebody's going to get a bit of cash. You're going to be paying about £60 to check the bag in. He says he doesn't want your money. He just wants you to follow the rules.
Well, that's all very well and said, isn't it? But it's surely, by giving his staff an incentive to do this, they're going to be even more stringent. And perhaps maybe, I don't want to accuse any staff of doing anything dodgy, but they may want to be extra on you just for that little, maybe a centimetre, even a millimetre over.
Well, he was challenged on this, and he said, no, if it's just a sentiment, we're not fussed. It's people who are really taking the mick who are going to be clamped down upon. And he says this is all going to feed through to lower fares in the end.
But, I've heard that one before, Simon. I've heard that one before.
Yes.
and you've also got some other changes to announce for us. What else are they planning on doing?
Right, OK. And I'm interested in how this goes down with GB News viewers. So at the moment, you have to check in advance. If you don't, you're going to have to pay £55 for a boarding pass at the airport. That doesn't apply on other airlines apart from Wizz Air, but it certainly does on Ryanair. Now, at the moment, I always just routinely print out my boarding pass. You got it there. Doesn't matter if your phone battery goes or whatever. You can get on that flight. But from the 3rd of November, it is going to be smartphone only. So there you are. You've got to have the app and the boarding pass. And they say that's because we want everybody to be on our app. Well, now, that's going to mean people who are who don't have access to a smartphone, they're going to have to get a friend to do it, and then you pick up a boarding pass at the airport. More palaver.
Oh, absolute palaver. So I just wish it would just be simple. I've printed off my boarding pass as well, because my phone battery as well. I don't want it to die and I've lost my boarding pass. Anyway, Simon, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in. GBviews at gbnews.com. Let us know what you think about these changes proposed by Ryanair. We'd love to hear your views on this. We've got a rise of reply here from Ryanair CEO now. He said, I want our ground handling people to be catching people who are scamming the system. I'm still mystified by the number of people with rucksacks who think they are going to get through the gate and we won't notice. We will, and you will be paying for the rucksack. Well, there you have it. Thank you all for joining me today on the show. It's been great fun as ever. I will see you again very shortly, but up next it is Jubes & Co. And of course, Dawn Neeson is standing in for the Queen of Primetime. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
Very much, Alex. Absolutely cracking show from yourself, as always. We have got a brilliant show. We've got a great panel, including Kelvin McKenzie, who never holds back. We are talking about how the government are putting the rights of migrants over you. This is what's coming out of the court today over that migrant hotel in Epping. We are going live to Epping for a reaction from the people on the ground there and the local council. We're also talking about Rwanda. Yes, it's back in the news because America has sent illegal migrants to Rwanda today. Why can't we do that? And we're also talking about, landlords. But that's all coming up after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through the overnight period, heavy outbreaks of rain skirting across the south. A good chance this could turn thundery at times, with a Met Office warning in place for heavy rainfall. And the reason for the unsettled weather, well, it's all thanks to low pressure situated to northwest, dragging in showers